Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
No matter what day of the week it is, as long as it's a weekday, we will be here, and the Situation Room will be live. We're coming to you live every morning. Happy Moi Day, and welcome to the Situation Room, the 10th of October, Thursday, 2019. Good morning, Jerry.
Good morning.
Happy Moi Day.
Thank you. What do you say back? And to you too? Cheers,
It's
mate.
like happy birthday.
It's just like happy birthday.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.
Oh,
Happy Moi Day too.
happy Moi Day should be like, how do you do? Ndu,
Yes,
how do you do?
I do. Good morning. I do.
You do?
All the time, yes.
And C.T. Muga.
Good morning.
Good morning, Aniwa.
I'm very well, thank you.
Oh, how are you, Eric?
I'm very fine, thank you.
Good,
Thank you
good.
for asking. It's a happy Moi Day. Of course, it's not so happy for the governor of Taita Taveta County.
How come?
Nope, he was impeached.
He was impeached yesterday by MCAs.
That's the news.
So impeachment is possible.
As in impeached, or in the process of being impeached?
They voted to impeach him.
And what is the outcome of the vote?
Everybody who was in the House voted to impeach him.
Vote of no confidence.
Yes, but what is the threshold? How many? What percentage?
I think it was all of them. There was two of them that weren't there. Strategically, I think. Perhaps his closest allies.
Yeah.
But yes, he was impeached.
All the 30 MCAs who were present voted to impeach the governor in a special sitting that was convened after a motion by the deputy majority
Now,
leader.
what's interesting and what I like about this is that this is a former media guy, CT. This is the people you wanted in power, isn't it?
Yes.
And ward reps have accused him of gross misconduct, violation of the law, and abuse of office.
And he's done the same of them. He has also said this. In fact, this is a tussle that has been running for a while.
Grounds for impeachment, it says here, gross violation of the Constitution or any other law, where there are serious reasons to believe the governor has committed a crime under national or international law, abuse of office or gross misconduct, physical or mental incapacity to perform functions of the office of the governor. So they've gone for the abuse of office and gross misconduct.
Yep. He refused to sign the budget. Beef starts there. He says that they are allocating themselves 833 million shillings for their awards, and he feels, no, this is not right. In fact, he is the one who started this whole thing of let's break up this government, let's go back to the people. So he's been in the process of collecting signatures so that the residents of Taita Taveta can say, we have no confidence in this government, let's go back to the people. There have been mediation talks led by his party leader, Kalonzo. We have had Raila there.
The deputy president
The deputy
there.
president has been there. They've had meetings with the president himself. The governor of Mombasa, that's the deputy party leader of ODM. But last week, he withdrew his mediation team. And the MCAs decided, you know what? Let's go there.
So what happens here? The deputy comes into play, don't they? They become the governor.
In an acting capacity as the matter goes to the Senate. So the matter now goes to the Senate. The Senate is the one that will actually approve.
No, what I mean is if we go full circle with this impeachment and
Yes.
the governor is indeed impeached,
Yes.
we'll have the deputy governor who's Majalam Lagui. Nice to have a lady there.
Majalam Lagui. Nice name as well. So let's see how it plays out. Most likely, the Senate will not.
Of course.
Senate will
We
not.
all kind of know that, but at least we know it's possible to impeach him at the county level. Not him in particular, but we know that there's measures in place where we can kick guys out if they're not
Yeah, if
living
they
up to
don't-
their promises and doing their jobs. So in the Standard, we've got a massive headline with the Pope on the front page. The Pope probes Italian priest over Kenyan love child. And it says, sins of a father. Vatican is investigating a Kenyan man's claim that his father is an Italian missionary priest who impregnated his mother when she was 16. So there's two things there. Her age, for starters. And then, of course, the fact that Catholic
priest.
Catholic priests are not supposed to, impregnate people. It's an interesting one because I'm sure he's not the first. I know there's a lot of...
Jerry, you've sort of like skipped a few steps.
Go on.
When you say impregnate, something has to happen before that.
Well, it seems you can get away with that because nobody will know about
Don't
it.
go through the process.
Don't start the process.
Don't start the process at all.
Yes, yes.
That takes it.
Carry on.
I think it's something that actually goes on quite a bit in the Catholic Church. You have people who have families that are kept hidden. I've heard of this from priests themselves. So maybe the conversation about priests getting married needs to start because, as CT rightly pointed out, the church is also an evolving organism, so to speak, and maybe they need to evolve with the times. Is there any reason why priests shouldn't get married? Is your dedication to God, does that sort of take away all your energy? Or is the idea of getting married, does that mean then you won't have time and energy to dedicate to God? What's the rationale behind
that particular
Catholic priests?
peculiarity, I think, is found mostly within the Roman Catholic Church.
Only within the Roman Catholic Church?
Yes. And by the way, you do have priests who have claimed to belong to the Roman Catholic Church and have gotten married, which means they had to now
Leave.
and set up their own little branch.
Yes.
Or leave and actually go into, I was going to say mainstream sort of living. And one well-known one in Kenya, of course, is he was a minister actually. He used to be a priest, was a minister. Mohoho, George Mohoho. Interesting.
Well, okay. Well, let's see what happens with that as hope rises as divers have spotted sunken wreck. Miriam Kigenda and baby Amanda Mutheo's grieving family hung on to renewed hope last evening after expert divers announced that they had located the car in which the two drowned on September 29th. The wreck was located in the cold and muddy seabed, 58 meters deep and trapped in a cave. Cyrus Oguna, who's the government spokesman, said it was that car that divers had been looking for the last 11 days. In that time, there had been 56 dives. On the 56th dive is when now they found this wreckage. There's a lot of conspiracy going on. One says that the dockyard in Likoni already has a car with bodies that has already been found and that it had already been removed, and they told the family to prepare for burial. Others are saying that the vehicle there may not be the one that they're looking for. It could be another one. It could take up to 4 days for them to retrieve the vehicle. There's going to be another diving attempt today with the new equipment now that is here, and they'll try to get the vehicle out of the cave, but it is trapped. I mean, there's so many things going on.
Kenyans are conspiratorial.
There's a lot of conspiracy going on with this right now.
As the news broke, I was seated somewhere and guys started, people started saying,
Where were you seated?
somewhere.
Where people say
Suffice it to say that I was seated somewhere, and actually, I was actually getting my hair done.
It's
My
okay,
hair-
Eric.
Your hair did?
My hair
Moving-
done,
You
This
got
is
your
what-
hair did.
This
Your
is
hair
it,
did.
right?
Eric,
So,
did you say hair done?
yes.
So
my
What hair
barber-
exactly?
it's the head which was done.
I was getting head. So my barber,
You were getting what?
my barber. If we, moving on swiftly, my barber was immediately said that this thing must have this car must have focus.
Eric, carry on.
Focus.
Carry on.
So this car must have been dropped there at night, and now they're just making this announcement now. I'm telling you, Eric, you wait and see. Listen to what Oguna is going to say. So, of course, Oguna comes, and this is the 3 p.m. Press briefing. And Oguna comes and says, yeah, we've spotted a car that looks like, it could be like the one that we saw, but we are not yet sure whether this is the same car because we haven't been able to see the number plate of the car. So we're still, studying these images to see what we get. Guy was like, what am I telling you? What am I telling you? What am I telling you? There. It's not the car. It's not the car. They're going to fix the number plates.
It is said
they
that
dropped the car last night.
It's said that the wreckage is in the area of where they saw the car go down that day, and by all indications, it could be the same one. But the question then arises that if it is in the same area, why were attempts not made in that area in the first place? And so, I mean, there are so many questions.
This is in a cave, that's what they say. And it's so much deeper than the other areas. So they started, you go down, process of elimination.
Kind of makes sense to go to the area where they saw the vehicle going down in the first place. Okay, well, let's see what happens today. And
Kenyans are
we'll
experts.
know.
Okay, no, this one is not. Kenyans are experts in everything.
In what?
In everything.
Oh, okay. Please.
What is this new area of
Explain.
expertise?
Hmm?
The new founded area of expertise is?
Well, you should start diving.
The Anti-Corruption Commission for the third year now has published a report which names the country which is most corrupt, meaning what the index they use is the country where...
Country or county?
County. I apologize. The county where those seeking services, this is how they determine it, the percentage of those who have been asked for a bribe.
Okay.
Yes, that's what they look at. And they also look at the amount, the average amounts that are asked. And for the third year running, Wajir has led the pack with 71.7% of the
respondents.
Yes, those seeking services have been asked for a bribe.
What?
And the average bribe is 14.3 thousand Kenyan shillings.
Average, wow.
Yes, but they're followed very closely by Kitui, and then Kiambu, then Kwale, then Machakos. Remember the index, what they're using, okay?
It's a very interesting one because what they're looking to determine, or the only thing this can determine, is how willing the citizenry is in participating in corruption.
In this.
They're not talking about the county officers themselves and abuse of office and corruption in there.
They're not.
So the headline is quite misleading when they say
It
the
is.
most corrupt counties. It's
is.
actually the most corrupt individuals within the counties, or their propensity to be corrupt.
Essentially, this is an indictment on the citizenry.
So people are actually willing to part with all this just to
Yes.
access government services.
It's like they seem to think that government services have to be bought or paid for.
You have to buy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That seems to be their understanding of it.
But it's in turn a reflection of the government and the services they provide and their reluctance to provide it, because if they were providing it as freely as they should, then maybe people wouldn't feel that they're supposed to pay for it. So maybe a lack of education as well there and
The payment,
information.
the payment of bribes is an interesting concept in this sense. It isn't so much that people don't understand the nuances, but people tend to believe that with a bribe, you
facilitate fast tracking.
Yes. It's the belief.
Is there any truth in that, though?
Lots of it.
Okay.
You will get the service, yes, but if you pay a bribe, you receive it quicker. Yes. It's like you express
So
service.
basically what this is telling us is Kenyans are impatient.
Basically, it's telling us Kenyans are willing, yes, to participate in the process of bribery.
Speaking about fast tracking and getting things done quicker, perhaps on Saturday, Kipchoge will actually break this record and run the marathon in over 2 hours. The world is watching Kenya. The world is watching Kipchoge. And interestingly enough, for everything that everyone has said, it's interesting to note that this is one area in which Kenyans can unite.
Absolutely.
And talking about heritage and really grasping to say what is Kenya's heritage, this could point in the direction of what it could actually be. It's never too late to grab onto one thing that unites the country, because when you then talk about heritage and cultural leanings, this is one thing that's clear to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world sees that this is something that Kenyans could come together of, and it's clear that it happens here, and it will be fantastic to see that he can actually break this record on Saturday and run the marathon in under 2 hours. It will be a feat
What do you
not
think?
done by anyone
What do
ever.
you think? Think he's going to do it?
I think he's going to do it.
You think so,
I'm
right?
optimistic. I think he's going to do it.
Jerry, do you think he's going to do it?
I hope so. He's definitely carrying the hopes and aspirations of the whole world is behind him on this. I think it's definitely put Kenya on the spotlight, which is wonderful. And I think it's something we really need to capitalize on as Kenyans. It's an opportunity. Sorry
This
to
is
bring
it.
it back to us making something out of an
Yes.
individual. But it's everybody's watching. So I hope he does it. And even if he doesn't, he's still the best.
Indeed, he is. This is the second time that he's actually going for this. And I think this time he's going to do it.
It's drawn a lot of attention to the country. I hope the Ministry of Tourism can capitalize on this. I hope the Sports Ministry can realize how important their ministry is on a global platform and actually start doing right by our sportsmen, because I believe we're actually failing a lot of our sportsmen. You find a lot of incidents where accommodation hasn't been paid for, some really embarrassing incidents, to be honest. So I hope we can actually pull our socks up. We can use this opportunity to rectify a lot of things and rally up behind the man, really, as a country.
Going by what the country has done, the government has done, that hope is just going to remain that.
Do we
Hope.
have, is there, I mean, I know there were departments of National Heritage Ministry after that. Does that still exist?
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. Under whose docket is this?
Ministry of Sports, Culture and National Heritage.
National Heritage, very interesting, because again, there are many countries all over the world where sports have actually been used to propel a country's overall development.
And peace and
peace.
unity.
Sports for peace is a big thing that was done in countries like Somalia, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, it was used, and people would see it as a sport and an extracurricular activity, but it is something that actually push national heritage agenda.
Cohesion as well. I
Cohesion,
mean, sports is a very strong tool when it comes to political movements. South Africa, for instance, one of the reasons or one of the things that put enough pressure on them to drop their apartheid regime was that they couldn't participate on an international platform when it came to sports. They were very happy with the sanctions, they were very self-sufficient, and they actually did quite well as an economy. But of course, they couldn't participate in World Cups, so cricket, they couldn't participate in football, rugby,
yeah.
things they're very passionate about. And then it was quite obvious when they eventually, part of the negotiations, they got the Football World Cup, they got the Rugby World Cup as well. I think that might have been the negotiations to fully open them into the sort of international sports arena. So sports is a very, very powerful tool as a political tool.
It's a very big thing. So it's on Saturday. They've already confirmed that this is going to happen on Saturday. The only thing they haven't confirmed yet is exact starting time, which they're still studying all the other conditions. But it's on Saturday morning, and of course it will be live on KTN News and KTN Home from 7:30 a.m. This is something that we're going to do on Saturday morning. It doesn't matter. We just wake up 7:30 a.m. in front of the TV. You're watching. And the whole country will be rallying behind.
Yeah, I think there's
Eliud
going to be a
Kipchoge.
buzz about the country, some element of euphoria and excitement. Quite nice. That it's
And
a
yet-
weekend as
and
well.
Yet, look, and yet, you're talking about the government, the Ministry of Sports, haven't organized any viewing parties and such kind of things. Have a giant screen at
They
KICC on
could
the
have
grounds.
capitalized on this.
Could
Maybe they
be.
have. They just haven't publicized it. I'm hoping they have. I want to be
Oh, Lord.
optimistic. They just need to communicate it better. Anything on your end, CT? What are you reading there? You seem very caught up in it.
Well, actually, it's very interesting that you should ask. SGR cargo grows despite protest.
Right.
8 trains used to leave the port of Mombasa. Now it's 12, which means there's more cargo being
12
transported.
a day.
12 a day. 12 a day.
That's good stuff. That's good
No,
news.
it's good.
That's
It's
good news.
It's good.
For the SGR as well, even for efficiency. It's good for our roads. It's good for the safety of our roads. I mean, that stretch of the road where you have all those trucks lined up, it's always a
The
nightmare.
SGR is the solution to that, you
It's
think?
always a nightmare. Well, if you can remove the trucks, if you can reduce the number of trucks on the roads, they break down in the middle of the road. It's
Oh,
seriously
no,
a
absolutely.
nightmare.
It is, and a lot of accidents caused by them as well. Wasn't there a directive that trucks shouldn't be on the road after dark, so after 6 p.m. and before 6 p.m.?
But I think it's still adhered to.
Yeah.
You actually don't see trucks on the road at night.
I do. I do. You see trucks. I saw trucks on the way to work this morning, and that was at
No,
5
well-
o'clock.
They depart like Mlolongo would be like, the place that you're stopped. So you depart no longer from 5 a.m. and you
What was the directive? It was 6 a.m., wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure either. I'm
But
not
there's,
sure either.
There's something like that.
But they don't travel at night. That's for
They
sure.
don't?
They
On
only
the road,
at
on the
night.
Mombasa road, you
No,
don't
they
see
don't.
them?
They
No,
only
they
break
don't.
down at night.
Right.
Yes. But now, on the political scene, ODM is claiming something quite interesting.
And you know, whenever they do this, it's usually because they sense a loss
Okay.
looming.
So what are they claiming, G? Since
They're claiming that there will be rigging, I'm guessing. I haven't even read the paper, but
yes,
I
and they're also
know their
claiming
style.
that the IEBC poll kits are at Ruto's residence.
There we go.
Okay.
The claims have started.
This was it. In fact, they started with Junaid Mohammed making a whole allegation the day before yesterday. And then yesterday they had a meeting with the IEBC. And they still maintain that position even after meeting IEBC. So IEBC Chebukati tried to reassure them, this is what the process is all
Chebukati
about.
is not a very reassuring person. Sorry.
But then again, there seems to be a technique or a stunt or a strategy that Raila has used over the years. Whenever he senses a loss is looming or senses he might not do as well as he hopes he would have done,
aware that you're opening,
he starts.
you're opening a discussion that.
What tends to happen is he starts to accuse the system.
And you are saying the system cannot be accused? Or
He was
they're not
okay with the
rebellious?
system before Kibra had this candidate. He was okay with the system
No,
before.
he didn't say he was okay with the system. The handshake didn't say he was okay with the system. They're very clear. The
I
handshake
think what
was
he's
to create peace.
as Mariga has gained traction, you've started to see sort of panic coming out or emanating out of ODM camp.
And how exactly has he gained traction?
Well, a lot of people are talking about him.
They were talking about him even before he decided to be a
Now
candidate.
there's
in
more
Kibra.
We're
visibility,
talking about
so-
him a lot more. This really is the litmus test for Raila's influence in Kibra, I'll be totally honest. I think
I don't think any
if he
national
doesn't
election-
win this by a landslide, it'll be very telling.
I couldn't disagree with you more.
Okay.
If our electoral system was one which was squeaky clean,
Oh,
yes.
here we go.
But it isn't squeaky clean. It's just a
How
fact.
come you don't have a problem with electoral systems in, say, Nyanza County and so on? Where
I
it's,
do have a problem with it.
Nobody complains about it there.
Oh,
When your
they do?
candidate wins, there's no problem at all.
They do have a problem with it.
Mm.
Yes, and you've seen it when you had an election, a by-election not very long ago, when the ODM candidate in Nyanza actually lost. Yes.
I have a
Do you
problem
not
with
see the running
politicians and
trend
how
here?
politicians do this. The way politicians come to make noise, in the sort of the 11th hour, and to try and disrupt the IEBC, because this is what you're trying to do. You're just coming to make noise at IEBC, saying we haven't seen the register, there's underhand deals, accusing the opposition and saying that your opponent has an upper hand in this. This is basically trying to disrupt the IEBC, and that's what I was saying earlier.
Look, if you're-
politicians,
if-
we need to
It's
insulate.
laying the ground for any
we need to
disputes that might
insulate
happen.
the
if you
electoral
want to
body.
be balanced, about this, there's what politicians do, and that we know, and that's what you're stating. And then there's what the IEBC does. Yes. So if you're going to lay blame because it seems like that's what we're doing, then balance it. IEBC play their part in this process. And a lot of the things that have been done by the IEBC, whatever they were called then, has been questionable.
Well, why participate in the first place? Because previously you've said you need to, they've participated so that they can actually see, and this is what has led them to seeing that the IBC was actually unfair or compromised somewhat. So in this instance, Raila's camp is outright saying, there's XYZ going on. If they've got evidence, take it to the CID, take it to the police, because what's happening or what you're alleging is happening is illegal.
How do we
As
know that?
opposed
How
to
do
just
we-
these
how do we
utterances
know-
and claims and rhetoric.
How else do you think politicians get their views known if they do not talk about it? Or if they don't air it in the public arena?
And they
How
can
else?
air it, but they can also take it a step further and take it to the
And
DCI.
How do you know they haven't?
Well, they should be announcing that they have, or the DCI should be reacting to it.
Well,
We should get the full picture, basically. Let's
Yeah.
not have this framed just
the party hasn't
accusing
said
the
that they have done
IEBC.
that. The party hasn't said that they've
If
done
you
that.
have
They're
evidence
just
of any
saying,
criminal activity within the IABC, take it to through the right channels.
Ah, yes. And if after you've done that, accept and move on, isn't it?
Well, they have to do that first.
And it's always playing victim. Always playing victim. It's not
That's
a good
the narrative
strategy.
that has
It's
been
not
spread.
a good strategy.
Are you
Always
saying
playing
that
victim.
all the
There are
time?
two ICT
suggesting,
officials.
Eric, are you suggesting, Eric, that at times that in 2007, in 2013, when there were complaints, in 2017, when there were complaints about rigging, you were saying that those complaints were not founded?
Always playing victim.
Well, for me,
That's
for me,
not-
whenever
that's not playing victim. That
always
is
playing victim.
this
No,
this
Because
that's the
none
narrative.
of them-
that's
none
the
of them-
narrative that
none
has
of
been
them-
spread. But If someone complains about something and there seems to be evidence that lends itself to it, how are
So
they
let me-
playing?
But
Let
why always Raila? I mean, really?
Let me
But
answer your
because
question.
he is the main contender all the time.
Let me answer your
Right.
question.
Is there any other contender other than him?
Yes, the one that beats him. Let me answer the question.
No. Contender means somebody has won and you wanted the seat. That's why you're the
Let
contender.
me answer your question.
Yes.
Whether you're asking whether the complaints are valid,
I'm saying,
they haven't been proven to be.
no.
No, complaints are valid in terms
They haven't
of
been-
anybody's
see-
allowed to raise.
No. Whether the issues
To
that are being
raise-
raised are actually legitimate, they haven't been proven to be. So you raise an issue and
Eric,
you say it as
which country have you been living in?
in this one, Jerusalem,
In 2017, why did we have a re-election? If these things have not been proven.
because of a process, because the process was found to have been flawed.
So the whole electioneering is a process. What is being complained about here is a process. Rigging is a process.
Now, what I'm
within a
saying is
process.
he can take it through the right channels, as he did in 2017, the courts and so on, and Raila can do that now. Because what I'm beginning to sense, and I'm all for the ODM candidate in Kibra, believe it or not, that is who I'm supporting for many reasons. But as soon as Raila starts complaining about the process, for me, it's a precursor to the fact that he's going to lose. So I'm actually heartbroken because it looks like Mariga might take this.
And I'm trying to say that particular narrative is a narrative that has been created to explain away the validity of any complaint that particular individual
Well, it
and
could be
party may
both.
be.
It could be both. It could
Yes,
be
it
whenever he
could.
complains, we say he's going to lose. But he doesn't seem to complain in counties and in constituencies where he wins. This is the thing.
But the
He
public,
doesn't say there's
but
anything wrong with the electoral process there.
do people who are in
It's
charge
only
of-
when he's losing that he'll say, no, the process
Have you
wasn't
ever
good.
heard of the IBC complaining about itself?
Yes, in some
No, but
instances.
if you don't like a system, you can't ride it if it's working for you,
No.
and then when it
And then
doesn't
when it
work
doesn't-
for you,
Unfortunately,
you actually complain
that
about
is-
it.
That is the duplicity of human nature. If it
Okay,
suits
so
you-
you've agreed he's duplicitous. Okay, moving on.
all politicians are duplicitous.
They should all be, barred from interfering with the IBC. This thing of coming out in the last minute
But
and actually
IBC
saying
is a
there are
national process.
There are two ICT officers who are being used by
Eric.
so and so to do the.
Eric.
Come on, every
Eric.
time ICT officers, ballot boxes are actually in Ruto's house.
But ballot boxes have been
Really?
found in places where they shouldn't be. And it's not something I'm guessing. It's in the public. There was an election where ballot boxes were being found at Kenyatta University, being found where... Look, the fact that it is a complaint and this person is complaining doesn't invalidate the complaint.
Absolutely.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. It's 27 minutes after 6 o'clock. Let's take a look at one of the other headlines that something major happened in Parliament yesterday. The debt ceiling was raised by MPs. And now the government has been told it's okay. Now let's remove the issue of percentage of GDP and all. Let's actually put absolute figures. And now you have an absolute figure.
What
ceiling.
were the parliamentarians promised?
I don't know, because actually it was from both sides of the house, and they were
what
standing
were
up and saying
what were they promised?
something.
Yeah, they were promised
Must
something.
be something.
Because
in for
why
them.
would you deliberately allow the country to sink even deeper into this debt hole? Why would you? There must have been some kind of in this case,
Negotiation.
collateral.
Yeah, there's something
In
that
this
they
case,
wanted.
some kind of
something-
What's
I mean,
interesting
really,
is
why?
they can't opt out of sort of international or universally accepted indicators. The debt to GDP ratio is a universal standard, so
Yes.
even our lenders will be looking at that. If we as a country want to isolate ourselves from it, all well and good, but when countries are looking to loan us money or are dealing with us on a financial level, they will look at the debt to GDP ratio. So MPs can say what they want in order to get out of this idea that you shouldn't be borrowing at such a high percentage in terms of the ratio.
Yep.
But we still belong to the world. We're still part of the globe. So
9 trillion shillings. Currently, our debt is at 5.8 trillion. So you're telling them that you can actually borrow and up to 9 trillion.
the thing
And
is,
the number of projects that we're talking about is we're saying we can borrow so that we complete projects. Hey. We talked about this the other day, CT, and we said, why not just freeze these projects? Why not don't start a new project?
how are we going to pay back the debts that we owe if we freeze the project? Because it's these projects we're hoping for, from which will generate revenue, or activities around these projects that will generate revenue for us to repay the debts. So if we freeze them, how are we going to repay the debts?
You freeze a project by saying, I'm not going to borrow to start a new project.
Okay, but
Complete
you have
the ones that you have.
let's put this very simply. Let's imagine you're building a hotel and you've borrowed 100 shillings to build this hotel. And it gets to a point, and the way you're going to repay this is by renting out rooms in the hotel. And it gets to a point where you can't quite complete the hotel. So leaving it means you can't rent out rooms to repay your 100 shilling loan. Not finishing it, not completing it, freezing it, whatever it is you're suggesting, means you can never repay the 100 shilling loan. So you could ask, can I borrow another 20 shillings so I can complete it? And that will put me in a position to repay the 100 shillings and eventually the 20 shillings.
Wrong premise.
So I think that's the position the government is finding itself in.
Wrong premise. My premise is actually that don't build a new hotel.
We're not building. They're saying they're looking to complete projects.
But Jerry,
they're borrowing money to complete certain projects.
That's what they tell us.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not condoning the borrowing.
Yes, you're not.
What I'm trying to say is we've got to put ourselves in the government's shoes. And what exactly is happening?
We actually are. What is exactly happening is that those hotels aren't even built in the first place.
There's no
some
hotel.
have
There's
been.
no hotel.
No, there's some projects that do need completion.
None. So
there's no hotel.
No, there's
No
no hotel.
land.
Yes, there's no land. I mean, so
There's no land to build schools.
No,
There can't be land to
none.
build the hotel. There's nothing.
None. So we're borrowing to do
I was
nothing
being theoretical as to what's actually happening on the ground. I don't know. But in theory, there should be no harm in borrowing extra to complete projects.
In theory, everything you're saying is true. It's just that the practice in Kenya is that nothing happens.
Right.
Why do you think this debate has persisted with the Eurobonds? The money is borrowed and we say, okay, these things you said you're using it for, where are they exactly?
It's
And
that they did the problem with the Eurobond, they didn't specify exactly what it was being used for. So
They
it made
did.
it very difficult for the electorate
No.
to
they
actually
did.
it was said for development projects.
They
The money
did.
wasn't ear pegged for specific projects. That's what we didn't receive.
You know, Jerry, when you borrow, banks require detailed explanation of what it is.
No,
what
they
is
didn't
the
tell the citizenry.
I
So we
I
didn't have
understand
a
the
platform.
citizenry was not told, but we don't need to be told in details what development is. Development has to do with what the country needs. Okay, for instance, when they talked about the dams, we understood what they were planning to do. That it's not difficult to understand, even when it's in seasonal water basis. Okay, seasonal, mark you. A dam actually requires water sources that are consistent the year round. But let's not go into that. If you say you are going to build infrastructure, we see the roads being built. I cannot even complain. I see it all the time. There's work being done.
You can see.
It's something you can see. You see, you can't, there's no phantom road. You're either building it or you're not. Roads are being built. But there are other projects which they may have claimed they're developing. But when you actually look, you see where the debate started was the issue of the repayment.
Yes.
That a lot of this borrowing coincided with the time when we're supposed to be repaying. Yes. So that's when the debate started. So when we now say, look, they can raise a ceiling and they can talk about development and all that, unfortunately, the development they talk of, one doesn't see it as we should.
And in
So-
some cases, it's actually okay to stop digging.
Yes.
Just stop digging.
Just because you started doesn't mean you have to finish.
You
can
have
just
to
say,
finish.
No, this is
No,
not
if
well.
you've
digging.
started and you were going to use the profits or the revenue generated from that to repay the debt, then it's probably best you finish, because how are you going to repay the debt?
You're
I think
never going to be
unfortunately-
able
I
to
think
repay that
unfortunately what
debt
we're
if you
saying
borrow
is-
extra.
Eric, you're right. If you borrow, you will owe more. So,
But I gave you the example of the hotel whereby you borrowed 100, didn't work out, you need to borrow an extra 20
Okay,
quid.
so let's talk about this practical one. On the Business Daily today, Kenya is paying a Madrid firm 330 million shillings for zero works. So we risk losing 330 million shillings paid to a Spanish firm for the upgrade of 5 stadiums whose construction stalled and the bank guarantee for return of the millions expired. So the Sports Ministry had paid this company a 20% advance on the 1.6 billion contract for lighting, sound system and automated security access for the 5 stadiums in 10 training pitches. So that has expired. Project has not begun. We need to pay 330 million because this was a guarantee. So do we still say that we must continue with the 1.6 billion shillings project?
by the way, the issue
We haven't started
You know,
yet.
the issue of the dams follow a similar logic. You came into an agreement. This is the first time we're doing it in this country. you sign a contract, you agree with someone, and you see, you renege on the contract.
Right.
They still expect to be paid.
Of course.
And nothing has been done. So surely this one reeks of an underhanded deal.
The borrowing is
Yes.
indicative of the fact that the money needs then to go to projects which should have been completed in the past but were not. It's not necessarily for new projects, and I think that's now where the ambiguity is very clear. Because it's obvious that the money is going to fill gaps that were left with previous bad decisions, and that's obvious.
So what that means is that the debt just keeps piling.
Yeah. It points also to failure by the Parliament. This Parliament is actually structured to be a budget-making Parliament as opposed to the others that were budget-approving parliaments. So this one, when you have issues like this where money is actually allocated, money is eaten, Parliament has failed because Parliament made the budget.
They would argue that they're following a time-honored tradition.
They're doing what they know.
They're doing what has been done before.
Well, it's Moi Day. Good morning and how are you doing? Welcome to the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. At 25 minutes to 7 o'clock, we'll be taking a look at what's happening on the road shortly. So tell us if you're on the road anywhere, going out of town, visiting somebody, have a party somewhere, going to Shijabusi somewhere, please let us know how the road is. It's 25 minutes to 7.
It's not every day that you meet a centenarian. Take, for example, the Standard Group. We have been here for over 100 years, and our secret to longevity has been but one: the magic of service. The magic of serving you, our customers, has given us so much life, and we could not have been here without you. We thank you, and we will continually endear to serve you to our level best. The Standard Group Customer Service Week. You mean the world to us.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Well, as would be expected, there's no traffic this morning. All the roads are clear as it is a public holiday and everybody is in bed. So nothing is really happening on the roads unless you see something that you would like to let us know about. I can't promise you that there will be traffic later. So I don't know what you want me to say, man.
Do it in pigeon. Tell us there's no traffic.
I was about to say Hakuna traffic. Traffic not day for road. car not there for road. Everybody there, their house, they sleep.
No day for road.
Abi?
Okay. 0719-012-600. If you are somewhere where you see some movement, you just let us know where the movement is.
I believe there is movement. It's just that there's very little of it.
Still, let us know that there is movement. Just to prove to Ndu that no bay, no road is actually not true.
I'll help you.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. I'm Eric Latif. We have Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and C.T. Muga in the Situation Room. The Situation Room broadcasts around the country in Malindi, Nyeri, Eldoret, Nakuru, Kisumu, Mombasa, Nairobi. Wherever you're going for this holiday, you can still follow us on 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu. We're in Nakuru on 96.0, in Eldoret on 96.7, 19.9 in Nyeri, and Malindi 97.6. So today is a public holiday, and like Ndu is saying, people are sleeping. Now, people sleeping like this, and the kind of public holidays that we have actually been cited as being very disruptive to our developing economy. People have actually raised this issue before. The people like the Federation of Kenya Employers has said before that, look, the kind of public holidays that we keep having now and then, they're disrupting the work schedules. They're disrupting the work environment. People are starting to work, and then no sooner had they got into the rhythm, they go on, take a break, and then they come back. And by the time they actually get back into the rhythm, there's another break coming up. Take a look at this particular public holiday. So it's on a Thursday. Tomorrow, by the time people are coming back to work, by the time they get into the rhythm, it'll be end of the day, weekend coming up. So practically, this holiday is actually a long weekend holiday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, people will be back to work on Monday.
Well, actually,
we should reduce them, or even not even Monday.
If Eliud Kipchoge
wins, we are likely
to have a public holiday on Monday.
Another holiday on Monday. Disruptive. Are you giving me that look, City?
Because I'm wondering.
You're shocked.
No, I'm not shocked. I'm just wondering how it is that you're explaining something wonderful and then you're calling it bad.
What, the public holiday?
Yes, the public holidays. They are good things.
Why? How are they good?
People get to rest.
People do rest on weekends.
Eric, you do realize that even if people come to work for some 14 hours, the only people who actually proved that those 14 hours can actually work were the South Koreans. When they were building there, people were working 14 hours, but you more or less resided in your place of work. And you would then take a couple of days off, but you worked continually. That way they guaranteed that people who worked the hours they claimed they were working. The French government recently changed the working time from 8 hours to 6. Why? They realized these 8 hours or whatever it is a bit of a joke. People don't really work 8 hours.
Yeah, you may be productive mostly for 6 hours a day.
So exactly, even 4. So when you talk about holidays, the Kenya Federation of Employers may complain all they like, but they haven't given us any findings from research that prove that these holidays actually are a detriment to our work ethics.
No,
or
there's a lot of money
productivity.
lost in the economy, no doubt. So it's a
Where's
matter
the
of
evidence?
wearing.
No. Where is the evidence?
Maybe no research has
It's
been done.
It's anecdotal.
No, it's not
Yes.
anecdotal. I can give you evidence, sorry to say, from the UK.
No, give me.
Which
but
it would be.
We are talking about Kenya, my
No, it
dear.
would be the
Let's
same
start with
thing.
the
This
UK.
It is
business
not the same thing.
Just because we haven't got the statistics here, it doesn't mean it's not happening. It's exactly the same scenario where certain businesses aren't functioning and producing money. It's not to say that, if you do a cost-benefit analysis, it's not to say the benefits won't outweigh the cost, but there is a cost to the economy when the economy shuts down. There's no
it
trading,
doesn't.
for instance, in the Nairobi Stock Exchange.
This is what you don't understand. That in this country, shops don't actually shut down. They don't.
Neither
Just like
bank holidays.
Just like
no,
on Saturdays and
no,
Sundays,
but bank-
assume they shut.
even in the
Don't.
UK, shops don't shut down. You go
Yes.
shopping, and there's still certain industries that, in fact, profit out of this.
Of
The
the
leisure
holidays.
industry, hospitality, and so on. They make a lot of money out of this local tourism. So I'm not saying, but the economy does slow down. There's
How?
money is not being made. For instance, the stock exchange. There is no stocks being traded
So?
today. That is, I'm not an economist, but that will have an impact on the money the country is making or
How?
could have made. what is the GDP of Kenya? And then work that backwards, how we make it every month, and then we make it every day, we make it every week, every day. So if we take a day away, we're not making as much money as we could.
Some processes are pegged on government, or some things in business are actually pegged on government processes. If a government office is not open today, it means something to a business. You're actually investing in something and you expect
if a business
X
is not
number of
open, if a
days.
bank is not opened, money is not being made. Money is made on a daily basis.
the government
so
has
today,
shut down,
money
isn't
is not
sprung
being
on
made.
you.
The
It's-
government has shut down today,
this-
City.
this
You cannot access
holiday-
public
so
Huduma.
what?
You can't accept.
You can't access the government on Saturday or Sunday.
Now imagine you also don't access it on Thursday and Friday.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't happen every day, does it?
13 times a year.
It's fine. A year has how many days?
There are 12 months in a year.
It's perfect.
We're
I
talking
don't see
about
the
an
problem.
average of one.
There is no
every
problem.
month.
There is no problem. You're nitpicking on something that doesn't really matter. It
does.
doesn't.
Listen, so
It
we have
doesn't.
New Year's Day.
Show me
right?
the evidence. Forget the days. I understand that.
No,
I live in this
days.
country. I know the holidays. Tell me how it impacts on the economy.
So
How?
name the 13 then, if you know them.
Okay, I'll tell you about the UK.
What,
where
the holidays?
Yes.
Oh, those are easy. Moi Day.
1.
Kenyatta Day.
2.
Ndu Day. Jerry Day. Eric Latif Day. You want me to continue?
Eliud Kipchoge
Day.
Day.
You want me to continue? Labor Day. Okay? Labor as in people giving birthday, Christmas Day, New Year's Day. You want me to continue?
Go on.
Boxing Day. Non-boxing Day.
Those are 5.
No, I've
Go on,
actually,
wait.
I'm at 10. Okay?
So no,
World
CT,
AIDS
no,
Day.
CT, let's get serious. These are days whereby the economy will suffer because offices are shut down.
economy
So you have
doesn't
factories
suffer.
Today, factories are not producing, for instance,
Well, how do you know?
because it's a bank holiday. It's
It
a
does-
it's a
oh,
public
no.
holiday. People are not going to work.
Excuse
Yeah.
me. What are we
That
doing?
is what
No, no, no.
happens.
What
It's
are
a
we
reduced,
doing?
No, we're
it's a
unique.
reduced shift. So you find even in factories, it's a reduced shift.
It's you'll
and
have a skeleton.
because somebody has come to work on this public holiday, they are actually entitled to another day off. It doesn't mean that because they worked on Moi Day,
You don't seem
you don't
to
owe
understand
them.
that
You owe
when
them.
people rest, they are more productive. You don't seem to understand
Of course,
this.
there is
We
that
understand
aspect, and in
that.
fact,
Don't
at the
understand
moment,
We
at the
understand
moment,
that.
at the
course you
moment
don't.
in the
It's
West,
a third of the
there's
day.
You
at the
don't
moment-
You work for a
understand
third of your day.
At the moment, there's actually discourse about having a 4-day week and a 3-day weekend to increase efficiency. So I don't doubt what you're saying in terms of the rest is well needed. Of course, the well-being can, a rested mind can lead to more productivity. And in terms of the economy, there's the leisure industry and hospitality, local tourism, that would be boosted. But there's no doubt about the fact that a percentage of the economy will suffer. Offices are shut today, factories are shut today, building sites where people tend to go to work and so on, they're not there today. There will be a lull in the economy as a result
You
of
know,
today. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's not good for the economy, but it's important that we do have these holidays for cultural unity and so on. There's no doubt about
I
that.
am saying there is
We
no
just need to
proof.
reduce them.
There is no proof that it is bad for
We
the
just need to
economy.
reduce them.
None.
Look at the other developed
Just because it
countries and
hasn't been written about, or
developing
because
countries.
I don't have access to the proof, I'm sure somebody
But
would.
you see, the
For instance,
argument-
in the UK,
way you- the
they
way-
only have 8 holidays. 8
Look,
public holidays a year.
look.
In the US, they have only 10. In China, 7.
So,
Kenya, 13.
excellent. We are-
African countries, in fact, we have 13 official ones. Then you have those ones that come that spring up.
Oh, well, you like the religious holidays.
Eliud Kipchoge Day.
Right.
No, Eliud Kipchoge Day. Something that comes up, let's just take a holiday. Let's take a holiday. Let's take a holiday for this and the other.
You're following a thought process that
Can we all agree to the laws of logic this morning before we sort of have this discussion? We need a premise or a
and how
benchmark
do you
through
know that
which.
my argument was
No,
not going to follow
because
that law
for
of
you
logic?
to just say, well, there's no evidence, so it means it's not happening. Some things are
have brought
logical.
in-
If an office is not
you have
open
brought in
today, it is
an-
not making money.
You-
i.e., it is losing potential earnings.
Yes.
It's not losing money, it is losing potential earnings.
The business is
which can
actually
be
losing.
considered a loss. And of course, just by virtue of things like a business loses its momentum when you have these sort of breaks, there's a lot of things that we can accept as logic based on not even deep economic theories, just common sense, really.
I think also it's important to look at what was the premise upon which these days were founded. I mean, things like Christmas, New Year, we can't really talk about them, but then other
Why not?
holidays, it's, international agreed and international holidays that everybody agrees upon.
Not everybody. You don't have them in sort of the Middle East and so on. So
they have their days,
Probably
like
not
the
in
end of
China.
Ramadan, for example,
We
where
have
don't have them in
such a day.
China.
Yes,
Ethiopia has their own New Year's.
their own New Year. China has their own New Year. Okay, so accepted again. New Year's Day in Ethiopia, New Year's Day in China, New Year's Day, across the Festival of Lights for a lot of.
Actually, in China, it's New Year's week.
Right, so the Festival of Lights across a lot of the Asian countries.
Mm-hmm.
So those are what are internationally known or internationally accepted as days where people are going to take off to celebrate these days. There are other days that are peculiar to countries. Like in Kenya, for example, we have Moi Day, we have Kenyatta Day,
Jamhuri.
we have Jamhuri Day, we have Madaraka Day.
Mashujaa.
Right, Jamhuri Day is different from Mashujaa Day in Kenya.
Jamhuri Day is December 12th.
Is December 12th. Mashujaa is
Mashujaa Day is next week.
Oh, we have
20th.
another holiday.
Yes.
Oh, voila. Okay.
You've got to
In
love this.
10 days.
So why is today always a holiday every year?
Since 1988, today has
Right.
always
And what
been
are we
a holiday.
One of them was
commemorating? What are we
scrapped. Moi Day.
celebrating?
One of them was scrapped, was it not? Kenyatta
Which one
Day
was
was scrapped,
scrapped?
and then it was
not
brought
scrapped.
back.
It was just not scrapped. It was just renamed from Kenyatta Day to Mashujaa Day.
Okay, so what I'm saying is
It's a
that
Heroes Day. Now we're not just celebrating the person Kenyatta. We're celebrating
But Moi Day has always been here,
since 1988.
and it's to celebrate Moi.
It's to celebrate Moi.
Right.
To celebrate. In fact, it started in 1988 to celebrate 10 years of Moi's reign, and then
Right.
from then on we had it every year.
And it's the 10th of October.
It's the
It's
10th of
not sort of
October.
the second Thursday of the month. It's the 10th
It's the
of
10th
October.
of October
so what I'm saying
when
is
you're
that all of
as
this
president.
all of this was it came from somewhere. There was a need to put the day as
To commemorate.
commemoration of something that happened, just like you said now. So if we scrap them, we're essentially taking away from that commemoration. And we're saying that, look, even though the economy will suffer, as it were, or even if there will be a lull in work or things are going to slow down a little bit, it was for commemoration. It was not just somebody sitting somewhere and say, oh, let's have a holiday and let's slap a name on it and call it something. It was for some use that, getting the country to come together to think whether they actually do, I do not know, or it's just an opportunity for people to roast meat and sit or sleep. Or actually think about, the man that was Moi, for example, on this day. So there was a reason behind the naming of these days. And I think that is what we need to look towards to say, what was it really?
Can we commemorate a day without necessarily taking a break?
Would you really focus on the commemoration if you were doing your normal duties?
Because I just need to remember that today was Madaraka Day. So there's Madaraka Day and there's Jamhuri Day, for instance. Madaraka is the day of internal self-rule. Jamhuri is the day of independence.
So where do you get the time to actually celebrate and do the self-reflection and get a feel-good factor about the actual day if it's just a normal run-of-the-mill day whereby you get up,
you're not going to do it. You're
go
going to go
to
to work.
work,
You're not
come
thinking
back at
about
5.
you're not thinking about Heroes Day when you're at work the whole day. You're thinking
the
about
idea
meeting your
is it's
deadlines
almost
and getting
supposed to
work
be a
done.
reward from the state to its people as well. There's that element. And I can imagine this would have stemmed from maybe when there was royalty, and on one particular day they let their plebs, servants,
To chill.
the serfs come out and have
And
a free
they
day, and
give
they're
them
celebrated, and there's an element of appreciation from the people. So almost to pacify them to a certain extent, so that there's no uprising against the system. I'm taking this back to sort of May Day celebrations back in the Middle Ages and so on, and it would have probably stemmed from that. You're letting people have a day off where they can celebrate. And of course, that's evolved over time. But if we make this day where it's not a day off, it removes from the essence of what this is all about, which is, nobody likes to be at work. Well, most people would enjoy the break. It would be a welcome break.
Now, what is that break actually doing to the economy, to the whole country?
Now, that's the
thing.
question.
Because
Yeah.
you see, if we have, for example, those 2 days that we are looking at our independence. One is internal self-rule, and then another one 6 months later is independence. Why not just celebrate one nicely, like we do? Jamhuri Day is actually bigger than Madaraka Day, and we all know that.
Yeah.
We all know, even the way
I
we
think-
celebrate it. The way we celebrate Madaraka Day, speech here by the president. Jamhuri Day, fun fair. We're now going to be in Mombasa next weekend, with the Navy demonstrating this at Mangina Drive. It's going to be a big thing, national thing. That's why the president actually delivers his speech and says, my big 4 agenda is going to be ABCD. Let's just focus on that and give the economy.
True. I mean, we do need these things, especially for a country as ethnically, I don't want to say divided because we're not, but ethnically dynamic as Kenya is, you need coagulants, you need certain instruments to bring us together for cultural unity, for national identification. And some of these holidays serve that purpose for the cultural unity aspect. In terms of calculating how much we lose as an economy, it's very easy. If we take, for instance, say our GDP per year was 12 million shillings. I mean, this is completely hypothetically speaking, and I've chosen simple figures that I can deal with. It's 12 million shillings per year. You then divided that into per month. You have 1 million per month, and you look at, we have, let's say, 20 working days in the month. So how much are we making each day? So if you remove one of those days, you have essentially lost money.
250K.
So that's how you would look at it. Of course, this is at a larger scale. So how many billions are we actually losing in a day? And if you weigh out the cost benefits to that, that's really what we should be discussing. Does it help?
You've actually simplified simplicity. It doesn't quite work that way.
No, it doesn't.
See,
but for the sake of the argument,
do you measure productivity by days, or do you measure it by the work that's actually done?
I measure productivity by outcome, and outcome in this instance would be profit or money.
And it's measured
so
by
it's
a day?
GDP, because we're looking at this economically.
It's the output.
Yes. So it's the output, what has come out of it, which would be how much money. And I simplified it. I said, say as a country we make 12 million shillings a year as a country. So that's 1 million shillings a month. You can then break that down into bite-sized chunks of how much you would make a day.
Yes.
Now, if you can calculate that and then you scrap a whole day, it means you have lost that.
There's an impact that day.
If no, not necessarily.
Because you plan. You see, businesses plan.
No,
People
you can
plan.
then-
You plan with
Eric,
Well,
if
well,
they
you could
plan,
then make
these
it more
holidays-
intricate.
These holidays exist. They existed last year. They existed 10 years ago. So if you're talking of planning, you know these holidays were going to come. So
Sure.
you plan with those holidays.
Sure.
So what's this new planning we're talking about?
Yeah, I think what we're also looking at is the effect that it has on the days preceding or the days following. Like, for example, yesterday, quite a number of people would have left, the office earlier,
Much earlier.
kind of in anticipation of this day
Yes.
that was going to
It was
be.
a
And
Friday.
if we're actually to do an audit of what would happen tomorrow, you're going to have quite a number of people calling in sick, a number of people who are not going to show up at work.
Having
because,
said that, you could then say it could increase productivity next week because of the break they've taken. So it could be that, it's a much needed break and people have come back energized and ready and they could be more productive at work. So there is that counter argument. If we're going to think, social psychology and so on. So those are the sort of discussions we should be having, not whether money is lost or
They
not.
would be
because
under
money
pressure. They may not actually be more productive. They may be under a lot of pressure.
Of course,
which
there's
ends
all
up
those
being,
things to
catch up for the days that
you're
would have
catching
been
up for
lost.
all those days.
It would be interesting to note because I having heard of things that have been said to me directly from two organizations who've come to set up business in Kenya, and one sentiment that they had was that the holidays, and because like you said, they plan, just like CD said, they plan in advance of time and they know the holidays that are going to come up, and what was already mapped out without the holidays that would come,
Springing
religious
up.
holidays, for example, or things that would spring up when there's the odd census here and there. The sentiment was that there were just too many holidays for them to be able to get their work done. And for this is coming from organizations where every second counts and every dollar makes a difference. And so they were of the opinion that it was just there was too much of a break, too many breaks for them to
Did
then have
they-
an
did they-
ample
not efficient.
flow.
Did they eventually set up shop or did they not?
Oh no, they did set up shop, but I mean they're no longer here now. But I don't think that was the reason. I don't think those
Because of
holidays.
Mashujade.
I don't think Mashujade or Moide made them pack up and leave. However, it was a sentiment that they expressed in terms of it being.
There's too many, and they just spring up all every
But this
now
is
and then.
this was an external sentiment, of course. But just letting you know that it's out there, and this is what other companies
I
do
think
say.
for the employee, it's a great thing and
Oh, it's
people
fantastic.
enjoy it. For the employer and the
You're getting
business
free
owner, it
money,
can be
because that's what
disruptive.
it exactly is.
Yeah.
You are getting free money.
But
I'm
let's not
paying
be
you
Debbie
for a
Downers.
day.
Let's also celebrate, even if we're at work. Let's celebrate and keep the celebration
You
spirit
see, like
alive
us
for
guys are
those
not
who are off work.
We are not
know,
disrupting.
but-
Those guys who are sleeping
You know
and
what
they're not
we've done
listening to
this
us.
morning is repeat narratives that we've heard for so long. We've actually believed them to be true without examining them.
What
You
are
see,
those narratives?
It's a
exactly?
simple one, that these holidays are too many, and because of this, they really disrupt the economy profoundly. Not true.
No, each holiday, what I'm saying is each
Not
holiday
true.
disrupts the economy, but by how much? And if we do a cost-benefits analysis, are they worth having? I
Are
think
you
that's
all
the
aware
conversation
that there was a
we
time
should
we
be having.
even government function on Saturdays half day? Are you aware?
I remember that actually, yeah.
So why did they change all that?
They needed to give people a time to rest. People needed to
Work-life
recoup after
balance.
the week. And
That-
they needed
that
to
was
pay
it. That
attention
was
to their
mainly
other
it, yes.
social responsibility, their home, their family, etc. Obviously, that was something that was taken into consideration for them to have the working over the weekend scrapped. It just made sense that you needed people to come back and be more productive.
And do you know how Kenyans spend their holidays? Most Kenyans go to the rural homes. And rural homes, people don't go to rest. They actually go to work.
They go to work on the farm, make
Yes,
sure
they
their
do.
affairs are
They
settled,
do. They
etc.,
do.
etc.
And when they go to Mombasa, many people rest, arguably. But most of them drink so much by the time they come back to Nairobi, they're so tired. they actually genuinely need a holiday.
They will not be
But if
productive.
we're to
Yes.
follow through with your reasoning, CT, that these holidays don't have an impact on the economy, then why not have 20-day holidays in a month? Do you see what I mean? Why limit them in the
No.
first instance?
I think
They
you're being
do have an
facetious.
impact. I am, so that I can
20
illustrate
days,
my
look,
point.
The whole point.
No, what I'm saying is if you're
20
saying
days
they
in a
have no
month,
harm whatsoever
these
to the
ones, the
economy.
ones which exist. You see, you are now trying to reason and justify your point by being facetious and saying, why don't we just have 20 days of
No,
holidays
what
and 10
I'm
days
what
of
I'm
work?
showing you is what
Yes.
your thinking leads to, the absurdity it leads to.
It
If you
doesn't.
refute the fact
Did you
that
hear me
these-
say increase the holidays?
No, I didn't say increase, but so that we
But
can
you
illustrate
are.
a point here, what I'm saying is if you refute the fact that these holidays cause no harm whatsoever to the economy, then you know what? Let's give more holidays and see what the impact is or what the outcome is. And of course, it will have an impact on the economy,
But
which
why
means
would
that
we
these
give more
holidays do
holidays?
have a negative impact on the economy.
That's a flawed
No,
argument.
I'm not suggesting we should give more holidays. I'm saying if we continue on your trajectory, this is the outcome.
If, Eric,
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to
This
start
is
your
a
day.
Spice FM 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 Mombasa, 102.5 Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 96.7 Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. And well, we are also live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. And the conversation we're having this morning surrounds the public holidays that we have. Today is Moi Day. Happy Moi Day, everybody. But also, wake up. You are actually being disruptive to the economy. If you're sitting at home, just enjoying, holding a cup of coffee and putting your legs up, we are saying, because we are at work, we are saying, well, I am, CT doesn't agree with me, that these public holidays are disruptive to our developing economy. And this is a matter that it's not just in Kenya. I mean, this has been discussed everywhere globally, and people have even said, yeah, public holidays are disruptive. People who run business will tell you, hey, another public holiday. In fact, the first reaction when they hear there's a public holiday that has been declared, they're like, oh no, not again. 0719-012-600. Please call us if you are actually going to work. Let's just talk about this. And if you are still chilling at home, also call us and let us know what do you think.
I don't think, well, if there's money lost or if there's potential for money to be, potential business being curbed by, I don't think it's significant to the country as a whole on that one day. I think where the focus should lie is what people then actually do with the holiday that has been granted them. I can understand that it was celebration and feasting for people in the olden days where they would finally have olden days,
break.
previous days where they would have a break and then be able to celebrate, spend time with their families if they needed to travel, etc. However, if we're going towards, cultural heritage and cohesion and things like that, then maybe we should start having conversations around what people actually do with these days and how are they able then to celebrate the commemoration of such days. Moi, the second president of Kenya, what legacy did he kind of leave behind? And I know that City is going to be pointing to some of those things later on, but shouldn't they be used as days when actual commemoration happens? Because look, let's just be honest, right now where we are, people are going to sleep later on, have, get-togethers with their family, do a little bit of a travel if it's not too far, activities of enjoyment are going to take place, and the day is done, we forget it. Do we actually commemorate the reason?
We do. I think the media themes, for instance, we're talking about Moi today, you'll find that across all platforms or across a lot of media stations, whether it's TV or radio, they will be talking about Moi, and there will be commemorations. There will be an element of reflection into that time. And the very idea of being able to go home and having that free time, you'll remember why you had it, and it will be pegged on Moi.
So we don't have to actually have national celebrations or government celebrations. As long as you take a break, you'll be able to...
What do we regard as government celebrations? The traditional parades and marches? I think maybe those are somewhat outdated. Young people don't enjoy those so much. Remember, there's a new generation that's coming. I can't see my kids. My son is 18. I can't see him sitting and watching a parade. He's got so much else to watch. Remember when we were going through this, we only had one channel, VOK. We didn't have a choice. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have any other entertainment. This is something we had to sit through, and it became somewhat of a tradition. But I can't see our kids sitting and watching the parades and some of the speeches by the presidents. It wouldn't
47 counties and have functions. Well, there are places where you actually see only a few people and a couple of donkeys. But then,
the stadiums aren't as full as they used to be. It's no longer the celebration that it was, and not because we're not as patriotic as we were, but because there's other distractions, there's other things to do. Do you remember a time in Kenya where there was probably 3 or 4 national activities throughout the year? There was a safari rally that everybody went to.
Yep.
There was the agricultural show everybody went to, and then maybe there was Christmas and Easter, and basically the whole country was in tandem with regards to what they're thinking, what's entertaining them, what they're ingesting even in the media. Now it's so dynamic and diverse in terms of information, access to the internet, what people are watching, what people are doing. The economy has grown sufficiently to provide us with so many different forms of entertainment. You can go to the cinema, you can go bowling, you can go ice skating, people are running, you can go walking in Karura Forest. It's different today. You're not going to find an 18-year-old sitting and watching the parade.
But you're looking at like...
Well, the thing is, I'm listening to what you're saying, and it is true. I'm just reflecting. It's one of these things when someone stops speaking and your mind begins to travel. I start thinking about the black and white TV. Then I started thinking of public holidays when even as primary school children you went to the stadium
and sang.
Yes, it wasn't voluntary.
Sang for the president.
Yep.
It wasn't voluntary.
Had it been, you find that a lot of people
it
would not have gone.
It was enjoyable.
It wasn't an era where the word voluntary was even known.
It was enjoyable.
Yes. So what we're seeing now is a time when it's a matter of choice. But you see, it's like on public holidays, if you go to Jamhuri Park or the open spaces we have within the city, you'll find them full.
Then.
No, even now.
Today.
Even today, you'll find them full. Today, I'm sure full. People actually take time off. That's a strange thing. Those who don't go to their rural homes will go there. But even now, remember the time when we had a downslide in tourism because of terrorist attacks and so forth, and the government went on a blitz and tried to encourage people to be local tourists. They actually took to that cry was heeded to. So people actually do go on holiday. This SGR has been a welcome boon for that. People actually use the train. People never used it. And it's fast. And people actually go to Mombasa. They actually go to the beaches. Kenyans have actually evolved and acquired a sense of holiday. It is actually true. They do go on holiday. People even go to the national park.
People take breaks, yes.
They do.
There are those that take breaks to move somewhere. But you see, with the kind of economy that we're having right now, are people actually even spending? Do they have money to spend? So you find on such days that people are actually just holed up in their homes.
No, you'll find the bars are full. I'll guarantee you that one way or another, whether Kenya's economy is doing good or bad, whether people have money or not, the bars will always be full.
Could
They
also be
seem
a
to
reflection of
benefit.
what's happening in their minds.
Either way,
What,
money is
drowning
being
their
money
sorrows
is being
in
spent.
alcohol?
Yeah,
Is
just
that
going
what
there
you're
to
saying?
drown
Yeah.
your
Of course,
sorrows.
there's
You're
other
finding an
aspects to it, and it reflects a lot, but money is being spent. That's the
And
bottom line.
the churches also get fuller.
Yep.
Yes, because now there's certain level of economic inactivity that requires divine intervention.
People are drinking longer hours today because, according to Mutudha law, on public holiday, the bar will open earlier.
They
But they still-
I think they dragged longer hours yesterday.
Yeah,
They
that's what
started
I'm saying.
Today they
yesterday.
might curb it a little bit because they've got to wake up tomorrow morning and go to work. So
They may not go to work tomorrow. They'll be
There's
calling
that
in
little,
sick.
there's that little detail.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's that little detail of,
But Jerry
Still
is
something.
right. There's something about the drinking culture. It defies any economic logic that you may have. You'd
It
assume
does.
that if people don't supposedly
have
have
money.
disposable income, for alcohol consumption, there's disposable income.
But it's a tricky one, that one, because they could be drinking because the economy is so bad, which is what Eric is suggesting, isn't
yeah,
it?
basically drowning their
But if it
sorrows.
was that bad, they wouldn't have the money to drink, so we're okay.
No, they would. All
They would.
All
They
they
would
do
just
is-
borrow
they
it.
just-
They
No.
would borrow it as
They
is the
prioritize
practice,
it.
as is the
They
practice on
opt
a national
for-
level
they
as
opt
well.
for a different, kind of drink.
Yes.
And that's why we started having the sachets and the kumikumis in those days because of that. Because this is what I can afford and I must have a drink.
And yes.
Situation Room right here on Spice FM, Kenya's biggest conversation, 0719-012-600. Are you awake? Are you at work? Or are you lounging today? Are you traveling somewhere? Would love for you to call us in and let's have this conversation with you. 0719-012-600. We're also live streaming on Facebook. That is Spice FM KE. We are live streaming on YouTube and on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. It's 7:10.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya.
Classic soul. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Happy Moi Day from all of us here in the Situation Room. Ndu Oko, Njeri Thorne, I'm Eric Latif, and CT Buga. Let's look back at the Moi years, right? So we started celebrating Moi Day in 1998. Moi had served 10 years in office.
1988.
1988, sorry, I beg your pardon. He had served 10 years in office, and since then we've been celebrating this particular holiday. And in fact, even this time the government says, let's reflect on, and Moi actually said, I'd like you guys, if you continue celebrating this day, reflect on brotherliness, reflect on what you do for the community, reflect on who you are, on who we are as a nation, on what we represent as a nation. And we'd love for you to also contribute in this conversation. 0719 012 CT.
Yes, Eric. You know, every time people talk of of legacy, our president has talked about wanting to leave a legacy. The term legacy, by and large, often refers to money or property that people bequeath others And it doesn't have to be when they are dead. It begins when they are alive. But with time, words like that tend to evolve. And if you're in leadership, again, the broad meaning is true in that it is what you leave and what people remember you by. Many institutions or many foundations, many individuals, when they've gone through their commercial activities and accumulated loads of money, the legacy they leave is either donating to something public like a hospital, a library, a university. Those tend to be their legacy. You'll find a wing named after them or somebody close to them. But all these things bear meaning when you bring in the concept of comparison. In the absence of comparison, many of these things cannot make sense. Good can't be good if there is no bad. Light can't be light if there is no day. But when you look at a leader and you want to talk about their legacy, the question is, what do you compare that leadership with? What do you compare that leader with? What do you bring into play when you're looking at this? The Moi era was an era that was probably characterized by extreme diversities. Diversities that began with a leader who began very, very popularly, was popular, truly, truly popular. Come the 1982 coup attempt, things changed, and then set in a period that many people have very unfond memories of, because atrocities were committed. Things that could go wrong went really, really, really wrong. But these aren't the only things that happened in the country during that time. To understand this, again, the word comparison has to come into play. You have to ask yourself, what else was happening around us at that time? We still had the Cold War. We still had a situation where there was West and East. We still had a situation where people took sides. And the entire period within which President Moi ruled, change came about. And significantly so when you had the fall of the Berlin Wall. Because that signified one of the biggest changes that particular century actually witnessed. So things that we considered normal stopped being. And to understand that even better, you need to look at the rulership of presidents who actually ran the business of their countries in countries like Latin America. What they did. Again, if you want history to be your comparison point, go further back in history. We look at what the communist revolution did to China, and you look at how they managed to turn around the fortunes of very, very poor people who couldn't even make a living, to having an economy that is now touted as the second largest economy in the world. That is a subject of debate, but there it is. Developed, the whole works. So what do we consider? Do we consider the 30 to 45 million people who died during the Chinese famine? Do we consider the people who died during the revolution? What are these things that we look into when we decide a legacy? I think for a leader, sometimes you need to look at the outcome, what I call the eventuality. After all these things have been said and done, what was the eventuality? What is it?
I think also we can't ignore the environment within which Moi was doing all these things or existing in the economy. So we can talk about the outcome, but it wasn't done in situ. It wasn't done isolated from everything else going on globally, which is what you've said. And around Moi's time, we had quite a bit of interference from the World Bank, if you remember, with the structural readjustment programs. And there's been an impact on Kenyan society. That was a series of economic and political reforms that the World Bank, when I say were initiated by the World Bank, of course, we had been held ransom to such institutions because of borrowing and the debt we had, and our arms were constantly twisted in order for us to reform and lean more towards capitalist structures within Kenya. If you remember, service provision was by the government then. Hospitals were free, schools were free, you had rubbish collection. Things worked almost from a socialist perspective. So yes, it's important that we take into account the zeitgeist of the world then, and this movement into capitalism, the Berlin Wall collapsing and so on. It's important that we take into account the environment within which Moi was operating, whether we're paying accolades to him or whether we're criticizing him. It's important we take into account the environment within which everything was going on, I think.
If you want to look at, if we extend that particular a train of thought, and we look at Latin American countries, people forget that even Cuba is part of those Latin American countries.
Yeah.
One of the things that was significant about Cuba is that they turned their back on the West completely. So significant that even in this day and age, it's only now that Cuba has accepted 3G. And social media. It's only now that The citizens of Cuba can actually communicate maybe with their leaders via the social media and so forth. But if you look at the social cohesion that that country has had, and against the backdrop of what was done, this was a revolution. We had our own revolution. We called it liberation, but it was.
Yeah.
And where the legacy of President Moi now stands out is what he did with it. Yes, people were imprisoned. Yes, people were detained. But remember, the detention laws were not created by Moi. He found them.
You found them there.
And remember, he's the one who repealed them. Remember, Moi found the one-party state. He didn't bring it into being. It existed before he became president. But he's the same person who actually ensured that the one-party state ceased to exist.
Which I disagree with. He succumbed to international pressure with this multi-party democracy, and he was very right when he said our parties will be tribally based, and we have seen that, and it's increased tribal tensions. One of the things that Moi actually stood out for,
So what do you disagree with exactly?
the fact that he succumbed to international pressure and allowed for multi-party democracy. I was for one-party democracy. The sort of the way China have it to a certain extent. Of course, I also lean towards a benevolent dictatorship, so you can see why my sentiments is that way inclined. But my point is, Moi was also renowned, and because of his policies, and you can see why he resisted multi-party democracy. He was renowned for uniting the country.
Yeah.
There was a lot of peace and stability under Moi, and I think this is one thing that Moi can be remembered for in terms of a legacy. Of course, a picture has been painted or was painted of him as perhaps authoritarian, for lack of a better word. And you would find, the media were fighting for their freedom. There was struggles there. There was the Young Turks coming up. People were being educated now, and they had different ideas. So there was some resistance towards him and the media because of suppression previously. And as you rightly say, he found this to be the case because of the suppression. They were actually fighting back. So very rarely would they then write glowing reports after his departure from the presidency. But having said that, I remember we enjoyed a great stretch of peace and stability in the country. The economy might have not been was not doing as well as we saw under Kibaki, but as I say again, he wasn't working in situ. The environment, there was sanctions from the West for 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons, whatever it was. There was sanctions, economic sanctions, and we managed to pull through that. So that's something to be recommended. I'm going to sing his praises today because for me it's nostalgic.
stands out.
And I've also seen what multi-party democracy does for the country, and it creates a lot of tension, a lot of negative ethnicity. We saw ourselves at the brink of war in 2007, civil war that is. Now that's something that I wouldn't have even fathomed under Moi. So maybe the economy didn't flourish, and with that I can say those mitigating circumstances. But in terms of as a country and unity and a sense of identity, I felt very Kenyan growing up. I don't feel Kenyan now.
I think
Well,
Moi was very deliberate. Moi was very deliberate, even from the moment he took over power. He said, "My legacy is peace, or well, my philosophy, peace, love, and unity." And when kids were actually saying this in the national anthem or the loyalty pledge and all, it didn't really resonate with many people. But if you look back at it and look at what exactly it meant, peace, love, and unity is we must be cohesive. We must stay as one united country. And I think for me, the defining moment in Moi's legacy was in the late 80s and the early 90s. At that point when he was facing so much pressure, both domestically and internationally, there was so much pressure for him, also politically. And he said, all right, so I listen to what you people are saying. It's okay. You want us to go into the multi-party route? I agree. Let us go the multi-party route. This is what we want to do as a country. I agree. Let us go in this direction. However, I caution you that let us not allow multi-parties to come and divide us as a country. He was still going back to his peace, love, and unity. Let us not allow these multi-parties to come and actually now be formed on tribal basis. And he said that. And I said, I listen to what you're saying. Let's do this. Let me participate in this election. You want us to put a cap on the presidential term? I accept. Let us do that. Let me campaign and let me go ahead and put myself forth as a candidate. Let me run with now proper mandate under this new system. And he got it. Well, some people may argue, he didn't get it. But listen, the point is, Moi actually got it. He got the votes, and he was running. He was the one running the country for those 10 years under multipartism. His clarion call always was the same. This multi-parties please let's ensure that they do not divide us as a country. That is what stands out for me in terms of Moi and what he stood out for. He was never wavy on this.
Although I will say, Moi and along with his predecessor Kenyatta to a certain extent, they did introduce this notion and this entrenched belief in us that when your guy is in, your community prospers. Because I'll be totally honest with Moi, he did a lot for the Kalenjins. There's no doubt about that. From building an airport to universities and lifting a lot of people out of, I wouldn't call it poverty in those days' terms, but in today's terms it would be poverty, but it would have been sort of a traditional setting and so on, and bringing them into modernity. Moi was responsible for a lot of that within the Kalenjin community. A lot of jobs in the public sector as well, just lifting the community into modernity. I wouldn't say out of poverty. I don't think that was considered poverty. It was a way of life then. So I think Moi is renowned for that, even within his community. There was no doubt about that.
It's very clear that there are many things that he's renowned for. I think I came into this country and I was just here a few years when the reign of Moi came to an end. And there was, I wouldn't say overwhelming need to bring someone new into power, but there was overwhelming need to see Moi go.
Yeah.
And when I speak to different people and I hear the different sentiments that came about, there were very many people of a certain age who were very happy with the programs that he had put in place before. I mean, there was the Maziwa
ya Nyayo.
Nyayo, which is when school children
school-
were all
the school
able
milk
to get
program.
milk, the school milk program. I mean, and just like we said, that there was an enjoyed period of peace in the country. Many people would then call him a dictator in terms of how he was able to sit for so long. But then raises the question for me that, did people see his reign as too long as opposed to see his reign as tumultuous? Because did they just want to see somebody new in that position? Because later on, the sentiment came and rang through very clearly. And many people would say, even in 2007, when it was the terrible clashes after the elections, people said, if this had happened, this would have never happened in times of Moi. And very, very, very many people bore the same sentiment, that the kind of things that we saw happening in 2007 post-election would not have happened had Moi been president. So then I'm asking, did people want to see him go, or did people want to see someone different?
You know,
In 2002.
There's a thin line here between a leader who is strong, resolute, and clear, and one who is a dictator. It's a thin line. One of the things that Njeri says repeatedly, and which is right, there's a Western construct when they describe third world leaders, African leaders specifically. Those terms refer to us. If you look at the Trump administration, Trump is a dictator, but you'll not hear anyone calling him a dictator.
No.
You've heard Njeri talking about the dictatorship of democracy. That's what you see in the West. Clever, but it's a dictatorship. Now, part of the reason I feel is because when the West describes us, they think there's this underlying belief that we're actually not capable of understanding the concept of democracy. And if so, then we're not capable of actually applying it. So even when you see it being practiced, you still don't call it that. I know this morning we sound like we're really buttering the ex-president, but everything considered, if we look at the outcome of his presidency,
And what has come after?
yes, then he comes out smelling really good. The Kibaki successes were as a result of what had happened in the Moi era. Yes.
But the Kibaki successes as well, you have to remember that little incident that was 2007, whereby he focused completely on the economic pillar and left out the social pillar, of which the economic pillar is fully reliant on. You need the peace, stability, and unity and cohesion within the country for the economy to keep growing. And what Kibaki failed to do is focus on this social pillar, which I think was Moi's focus. And I think his attempts at growing the economy, they were curbed, of course, because, as I keep saying, he wasn't working in situ. There was international sanctions. There was very negative reporting of Kenya where investors didn't have confidence in the economy and the political setup. So there was those things working against him. And we were a developing country, or we were a third world country, as we were called in those days. So in terms of what Moi did, I would say he focused primarily on the social pillar, and then Kibaki came in, and as a result of that social pillar, he could build on the economic pillar.
Yes, he could. In fact, if you want to understand it better, you simply need to understand how the sector of education grew during Moi's time. You see, for the economic pillar to function, you need a labor force that is trained and able to cope with whatever needs that are required. And that education, the expansion of it, actually led to something that most people don't even realize. Many Kenyans left this country because they felt they couldn't work or live under the Moi era, for whatever reason. But many of those who left were people who were already educated and could get work elsewhere. There's something we refer to as remittances. I've said this before in this program, but it has grown. It forms a very, very significant part of what we call our foreign exchange reserves. Okay? Now, this wouldn't have happened if the education sector had not grown. And it grew significantly, exponentially under Moi. When Moi took over, we had one university. One. I say this because I went to that one university. Yes, when you talk to university.
Not that one, you went to the university.
Yes, it was yes, exactly. Right. And with this came up, you see, right now, we sometimes talk of the resentment that some of our neighboring countries have towards us. And part of it is because we've had such a strong labor force that we export it even to our neighbors. So you'll find that certain jobs, Kenyans are more likely to be employed in those places. In fact, if you take it even further south, the very thing that the Commonwealth allowed us, you'll find that we have teachers, we have lawyers, we have judges, we have business people, right within this continent. The only other people who do that very successfully are the West Africans, specifically Nigerians and Ghanaians. Yes. So all I'm saying is a lot of these things, it's not understood, it's not talked about, but it is Moi. What Jerry said was actually true. And you have to ask yourself, if you're president and you can see that you come from a community that is disadvantaged, terribly disadvantaged economically and in terms of development, do you sit by and just watch?
No, you don't.
You don't.
Precisely.
We're discussing the Moi years, the legacy that Daniel Arap Moi left for the country. What is his legacy? This is Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, because today is Moi Day, and of course we know the origins of Moi Day. We know what it means to us as a country. So we're looking at Moi's wins, but also, of course, we'll not be ignore what every human being will make mistakes. Let's also look at what mistakes Moi may have made, as a leader, in his capacity as a leader, as the President of the Republic. 0719-012-600. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM. It's 7:30.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best
freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles. Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where, and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
I don't know how we do it.
Traffic.
Even with no traffic, we've managed to achieve a fatal accident on Thika Road this morning. A few minutes ago, no doubt, a Matatu and another vehicle have collided, and it has resulted in 2 deaths this morning. And that is in Ruiru, and there have been some fatalities and injuries with some victims. And right now, they're still waiting for an ambulance to get on site. It's a public holiday, so it's going to take some time. Nobody's really focusing in terms of that. So that's a situation on Thika Road right now. Nothing else is happening anywhere. Mombasa Road is extremely clear. Everybody's still asleep. Everybody's still in bed, apart from this particular incident on Thika Road.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Wengine hawakuamini kwa sababu wanaamini power katika kontinenti la Afrika, kwamba kuna mtu anaweza kuwacha power ya urais. Power iko kwa wananchi, na sisi tu ni wadhamini yao. Na ndio nataka kuambia wananchi wetu wanaotafuta democracy, tafadhali muwe na principle ya kuamini yale mnayoamini. Haiwezekani kiongozi kuruka hapa, kesho anaruka hapa. Nasema haya kwa sababu nitaondoka kwa siasa ya moto, mimi kwa raia mwema. Lakini wale wanaozingatia kuongoza, msiweke Kenya chini. Msiweke msingi wa siasa zenu kwa chuki.
He speaks with a prophetic accuracy there, doesn't he? As if he could predict the future. He was known, of course, as a professor of politics as well. And politics is about not just speculating, but an analysis of what will come to be. And yes, he speaks with a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? Not intelligence, but insight. Very insightful what he talks about. He had a good understanding of the Kenyan psyche and what would happen with multi-party democracy. And he's appealing to our better nature, isn't he, as a leader, and saying, can we keep some principles even with this democracy? And you can see what he's talking about there. It's the sort of contradiction of democracy and the African state and the African mind and maybe our cultural ideas of leadership. And we're now seeing this crystallize where the one-size-fits-all democracy isn't quite working for us. We're working around it, and we're trying to tweak and fine-tune things like our constitution in order to meet this definition of democracy. But he does ask us and appeal to us to keep our principles. Of those, I don't know what they would be. What is he talking about there?
You know, he actually got to the heart of the matter in many ways. And one, he was actually saying, you know, there are people who just want to rule because they want power. He says, essentially, you need to understand that power is actually given to you.
Yeah.
So if you want this thing, please understand why it is you have it. It's to serve. He didn't say, but it's to serve people, not just so that you have it. Now, if you understand the way our politics plays out, it seems to be he understood this better than most leaders.
Yes.
Yeah, he had clarity
He had
on that
seen
thing.
it.
Yeah, but this man had been in politics literally the vast majority of his natural adult life.
He was a teacher, wasn't he, initially?
He was a teacher.
Yeah.
But by the
Vice
way,
President.
all these fellows, with the exception, of course, of our first president, who were teachers.
At some point.
Yes, they were.
I think the combination of his comprehension.
Our first president was a journalist. Jerry.
I think with the combination of his comprehension of the people of Kenya and their psyche and how Kenyans really think, and also with with his deep insight and his understanding of the political scene in this country, he was then able to say, look, folks, this is actually what is going to happen. And it is upon that premise that he actually said, in 2002, there was some times when he actually made the statement, whether they were within closed doors or said, he said, essentially, you guys are going to ask for me back. You're going to ask that you will remember this moment when you asked me to leave, and you would want me to come back. It's almost as if he had Jerry's crystal ball, where he was able to look at it and say, this is actually what is going to happen.
She inherited
and you guys,
it from him.
maybe she did, and you guys are not actually aware. You're not really aware of what you truly, truly are asking for, based on his understanding of that. And then it pushes me to then say, do we have leaders right now who have the kind of insight that he did? And I say that with that kind of insight and that deep understanding, then we should be able to create supra presidents or supra leaders. If that kind of understanding and comprehension is implemented and is actually used and enforced on the ground, we should be able to have countries that are rolling in success.
Now, this particular individual is a bit unique. If you consider the times in which he grew up in, and the place he was born in, he wasn't the only one born at that time. He wasn't the only one who was a teacher. No. There were people who actually were probably even more educated than him.
He stood out clearly.
What is it about this person that made him? Because it's clear that his understanding of human nature surpassed that of many people. Because
It was unique.
Yes.
Emotional intelligence, we call it.
Seriously.
today, I
And it
think.
could even be noticed by the time he was actually being picked to go into the Ledge Corps.
Yes.
He had something that he was bringing to the table.
He did.
And it was clear that this man has something.
There
Even
was-
Kenyatta, but I think even Kenyatta saw it in him.
There was, you see, the uniqueness of the man was that he was actually humble. Yes, he was. He wasn't one of these people who sort of like put himself out there. He never did. And even when he was vice president, that man was harassed. There was a police chief in Nakuru. I grew up in Nakuru, so I know this, called Mungai. That man used to ride horses, he and his children, in the middle of town.
Oh, nice.
No, not nice.
Well,
Because
I
he
mean-
would just ride those horses.
Must be nice.
even against traffic. So people who were driving their cars had to stop because he was
horses
riding
were
horses
coming.
in the middle of town.
With the kids.
Yes, with his kids. Now, that man gave Moi a hard time. A really hard time. But he wasn't the only one. There are many others who did. Some people actually left the country when Moi became president because they thought that Moi was going to prosecute them. They later came back and really nothing happened to them. The point I'm trying to make is there was something about him that even endeared him to other leaders because he didn't promote self. Not really. And there are those who will argue that the first 5 years of the Moi rule was some of the best this country has ever seen. The problem set in 1982.
So then why, because we can look at it now and we could say it was a stellar performance in terms of his understanding and what he was able to do that even endeared other leaders to him. Why then was this mass clamoring ever present then when it was at that time when there were cusp
Moi
of
must
change?
go.
People
Operation
wanted
Moi
him
out.
gone. Why? If we can look at it now and analyze it and look at it critically and say it's possible for us to say that he's one of the best leaders Kenya ever had, right? Based on what
Yes.
we've spoken about now. Then why was that? I mean, because I could feel it. It was thumping when I was here. And as an outsider or someone who's coming in from, external setting, it was clear on people's faces and people's voices what they said. They wanted the man gone.
People
You've had-
needed change. I think you
Yes.
talked about it earlier, and you talked about, was it the tyranny of this man that people didn't like, if there was tyranny, or was
Or
it the
that they
fact,
wanted
the longevity of his presidency
Right.
that irked people? And it was that there had been 24 years is a long time. For a lot of people, that was their whole lifetime.
Yep.
It's a generation.
Absolutely. Of course, we had seen a heavy-handed approach from the president as well. We've got to be very honest with this, because in 1982 there was an attempted coup and it failed, and Moi took the opportunity to consolidate his own position as president, but became increasingly authoritarian, of which I have no problem with personally. We've seen what sort of the idea of
Freedoms.
libertarian leadership does, and how much money can be siphoned off, and what it does to the economy and the people as a result. So, yes, he did become a little bit more, call it strict, authoritarian is the word, and that was after the coup. And there was some uprising against him in terms of there was dissent, and in those days media, of course, was we didn't have the pluralism that we see today in terms of different media houses and frequencies and so on. So media was a lot easier to control, and narratives that were coming out of the media were a lot easier to control. In fact, one thing, as somebody who does political communications, one thing I will commend Moi for and his team was his political communications. I mean, it came out unified. Moi had control of his cabinet, of his people, of anybody working for him. You didn't find any gaffes that you'll find today where the wrong thing has been tweeted by the wrong account and so and the Toobies and so on. You didn't find any of that. It was there was discipline as well under his leadership amongst the ministers, amongst the MPs. It was a tough time to rule as well. We didn't have the economic muscle that we do now as a country in terms of development. But I think he did well for the country, especially the social pillar. That I can't emphasize enough. And he was genius to foresee this idea that multi-party democracy in a multi-ethnic country would bring about the negative ethnicity that we've seen. It's the West stoking our negative ethnicity by pushing this multi-party democracy. And then also there's one thing, and it sits in very well with some of my actual internally held philosophies and ideologies, is that the West was pushing for us to democratize, and we hadn't reached economic development, and they knew that we wouldn't be able to do this, and it becomes a very difficult task, an impossible task. There's no country in the world that has democratized before reaching economic development, and this is what we were being pushed to do under Moi. So you can understand some of the challenges that he was facing, because there is a lot of criticism out there, rightly so, everybody's allowed to have an opinion, but you have to have all the facts at hand before you throw that criticism around.
Let's open up the phone line, 0719-012-600. We'd love for you to tell us what you think of the 24-year Moi rule, the positives and maybe the mistakes that the man may have made. Good morning, Teddy.
Yeah, good morning. How are you guys?
Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
The topic is good. And one thing I appreciate about Moi brought a certain, how can I call it? He brought some leadership qualities that we don't have today.
Mm-hmm.
One being, this guy, as I said yesterday, dictatorship sometimes applies for a country to move. And what I think made Moi to rule for that time is because he was generous.
Mm-hmm.
If he was not generous, he could not rule at that time. And also he made sure that he had pocketed all the intelligence services almost near to him.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see Uhuru, currently the Uhuru, he picked Uhuru, and Uhuru is repeating the same thing, but indirectly. How? You can see the spokesman, the government spokesman, is from the armed forces.
Mm-hmm.
So if you pocket these people around you, you'll have a good time always. And trust
What
me,
is a good time?
For yourself as an individual or for the country as a whole? Which one are we
I think
looking
it means
at?
you'll have an easy time ruling.
You'll be able to govern. You govern better.
let me tell you one thing, Jerry. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I want you to understand this. This time of Moi, I remember my father, I wouldn't say where he was ruling, but he was a town clerk somewhere. I was very young.
Mm-hmm.
And that time, because the Air Force wanted to do something to a country, but they didn't succeed. Why? He had all the powers of the Kenya Army. And the Kenya Army happens to be more powerful. And also, the police. You can remember the guy. Was it Patrick Shaw?
Yep.
That guy.
The police
He made sure
reservist.
that he had somebody very powerful. I remember seeing Patrick Shaw in my home.
What had you
So,
done?
Not me. That time my father was being told that he wanted to do a coup, but finally he was released.
Okay.
It was not like that. So the point is, let me tell you about Moi. And allow me to compare these three leaders: Uhuru, Raila, Moi, and Ruto.
Ruto? Where does Ruto come in?
Yes.
He hasn't been president.
I'll tell you where he's coming in. I'll tell you where he's coming in.
Mm.
I'll tell you where he's coming in. You know, Uhuru is generous, just like Moi. what makes Raila not to rule? I'll tell you, Raila could have become the president of this country many years ago. But the problem is, no one trusts him. He's not generous. He has made many politicians famous, but he's not generous to them.
So
And
he
that we
doesn't
can
buy.
see.
Basically, what you're saying is Ruto buys support and loyalty, and Raila doesn't have to. Is that what you're saying?
No, differentiate from buying and being honest. Ruto akikwambia today, I'll do this, he will do it.
Really?
I'll give you a very good example. Take somebody like Echesa. Rashid Echesa, was he landed? But because he campaigned for Jubilee very well, he was given that chance.
How long for? Anyway, that's a story for another
But
day.
he failed us.
Echesa failed himself.
Yeah, he failed himself because he was given the opportunity.
So what you're
but he
saying is
didn't.
you like this sort of archaic and old-fashioned and almost deceitful reward system, and you prefer that to Raila's institutionalized idea of leadership within a democratic framework.
Trust me, if Raila wants to be the president back in 2022, he only needs one thing: just to be honest to people, and secondly, be honest to himself, and not to be overambitious.
And this honesty is what exactly? It's this notion of giving people money to buy loyalty, or
Sometimes it's not a must to give people money.
So when you say
what is
generosity,
generous?
I'd really like to understand what you mean by being generous. Generous with, how you share your personality with people. Generous in what way? Could you be specific about what this generosity means?
Generosity means this, right? If the people who surround you, first of all, they, when they lie to you, some of them, they lie to you, you are very famous. So they tell you to be more like conservative.
Are you saying that the people who surround Raila lie to him?
Yeah, exactly. Trust me.
They
If
lie
he
to
had
him that
good
he's
advice-
popular.
Teddy, you seem to have quite a few insights, whether wrongly or correctly placed. What is your background? Are you into politics or governance?
No. I'm just trying to tell you what we need in this
He's
country.
the son of a town clerk.
He's
He's the son of a town clerk.
clerk,
Okay,
yeah.
so you're interested in politics.
The point is, let me tell you, Raila just needs only to change two people who are surrounding him, and he'll do something good.
Who are
So
those
it's not
people?
about his generosity anymore.
Let's hear who these two
Who
people
are the two
No.
people?
Generosity is also there because if you are stingy, let me tell you, I will not come. Let me tell you. I'll
Isn't
not
that
come to
backward, this idea of handouts? Do you not want us? Do you think Theresa May gave handouts?
Okay.
Do you think Tony Blair gave handouts? Do you think Obama gave handouts?
Do you think Museveni gives handouts? Do you think Kagame gives handouts?
Okay, I'll ask you a very simple question.
No, we're asking you a question.
Okay, I don't want to go to that.
Well, I think it
I'm avoiding
counters
that.
or it negates your assertions because handouts aren't the way forward. They're short-lived. When you buy loyalty, it has a short shelf life because somebody or a higher bidder can come and outbid you and buy that loyalty. What you want is a sort of loyalty
I'm trying
Raila has.
I don't want to go
That-
to that. I don't want to go to that because if I go to that, I'll be entering into.
You'll be entering into murky waters. Thank you very much, Teddy, for your call
Thanks,
this
Teddy.
morning.
Thanks, Teddy.
Keep listening, though.
Asante sana. Norman in Kisumu, good morning.
Okay, good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Norman.
Morning.
Good morning,
Yeah,
Norman.
So, thank you. Now,
Uh-huh.
according to me, you can't be good and bad at the same time. I can't say Moi was good
Mm-hmm.
because as much as we may mention some of the good things that he did,
Mm-hmm.
I think the bad things that he did supersede the good ones.
Mm-hmm.
The human nature is when let's say someone dies. Look at Mugabe, for example, who died the other day. I didn't hear anybody talk ill about Mugabe.
Many
like
did.
some
You
of-
didn't. The West painted him with a very hardcore brush of what a tyrant he was, and they spent years ridiculing him. Do you follow international media?
Yeah, I did. And the other day I was watching France 24,
Mm-hmm.
And most of the things they were talking about are just good things.
That is now.
Oh,
For the longest, Mugabe was demonized and ridiculed.
No, actually,
And
no
then
one is
even
talking
just as
about
recently-
after his death.
After his death, you had people actually complain that he was being spoken of too highly. You had Zimbabweans say that we didn't have enough of an insight, we as the international community didn't have enough of an insight to be making the statements that we were in terms of who Mugabe was.
Really was, and
We
how
had-
they felt the
We
impact
had
of his
people
rule.
who worked with Mugabe from the time they actually began those movements saying that Mugabe wasn't quite what people were saying he was. And some were saying that Mugabe was one person when he came into leadership and changed and became someone draconian. These are Zimbabweans.
But sorry, Norman,
Yeah.
what was your point?
Yeah, so when someone is gone,
Uh-huh.
we start talking about every good thing that he did, when actually the bad things that he did were so many that some of us have not even healed from the bad things that he did to us.
Right. Okay. So there's some wounds and there's some pain and there's some healing that you feel you need, or some people still need.
Yeah. So when someone was bad, let us demonize him till he goes. Even after he's gone.
Should we completely overlook the good things that he did, or can we not have a balance whereby we can criticize but still appreciate that there was a lot of good that he did, especially for the social pillar of Kenya, whereby we were united, the cohesion was there, ethnic tensions were at minimal levels, and then we have to take into account some of his failures in terms of economically. And when we say failure, it's just comparatively speaking. Kibaki came in and the economy did shoot up quite quickly. But could it have been because of maybe economic sanctions and the environment within which he was existing, structural readjustment programs? Do you have all the facts? And what is informing you of his badness, so to speak? Is that negative propaganda from the West, who were agitating, of course, for multi-party democracy and painting him in bad light when it came to human rights records?
You know, from the onset, I mentioned that I believe you are either good or bad. You know, there are some bad leaders to come in the future. But if they see as cursed the leaders who did some bad things when they were in power, and they will not do these bad things that they hear the former leaders did. So it will set a threshold for our leaders, so that if they don't meet them,
we call them out.
We can call them out.
We call them out.
Norman, can I ask you, if you look at the leadership of presidents we've had in this country, which of our presidents would you consider a good president or a good leader? And why would you
In
call
Kenya?
him that? Yes, Kenya.
Of the four leaders we have had,
Presidents, yes.
you know, the one thing that pains me most about this president is the assassinations. People, each and every leader had at least a promising one assassinated. For example, during the Kenyatta government, we had the likes of Mboya go very innocently. During the time of Moi, we had Robert Uko go, and the likes of so many people were killed. So there's one thing that pains me about these leaders. Why do you feel a promising leader because you want to remain in power? You know, that thing pains me so much.
So nobody stands out for you then, Norman, as somebody who was an exemplary leader for this country. Nobody stands out for you as someone that you would say, yes, in the time that they have served so far, or the time that they served previously with a term, that nobody stands out for you to say, this is somebody who took Kenya from point A to point B in a forward direction as a good, sound leader, even though they would have their rough and tumble, even though they would have, you know, specific areas where we said here they didn't do so well, but overall, generally saying that they moved us forward. Nobody does that for you.
Okay, Kibaki would have, but with the 2007 scenario, I totally rule him out because of that.
Okay. Norman, thank you very
Yeah,
much for
so-
calling.
Interesting. While we have you on the line, Norman, it is possible to be a good person and do bad things. Also, it's possible to be a bad person and do good things. So you don't have to draw the line so strongly over there. It's not that you're either good or bad. It's there's a lot of gray areas, and it's not that simple, I don't think.
Okay.
Asante sana, Norman. Have a good day. 0719-012-600. We are talking about the 24-year Moi rule and what was happening then. I mean, what do you think stands out for you as the positives, the good things that would go in as the Moi legacy?
You see, when we talk of leaders, we forget that they're human beings, actually.
Exactly.
And you cannot be a functioning human being if you don't make mistakes. Now, when you're in leadership, they stand out and they're glaring. And until I think someone gets into a position of that sort of leadership, do we really understand what that leadership entails, to be honest? Because if you look at the current president, the times in which this president is functioning is very different.
Absolutely.
The things that he has to grapple with are very different. It isn't the same group of people that the previous president had. It isn't the same economy. The world order isn't what it was.
Nope.
All these things are things this current leadership has to grapple with. So, in fact, today really is a holiday because this is the second time I'm agreeing with Jerry wholeheartedly.
And you know what? You have to understand, when Kibaki came in and we saw this sort of miracle growth in the economy and the infrastructure and so on, let's look at, let's juxtapose the geopolitical situation and China and our relations with China, and prior to that our relations with the West, which is what we were reliant on for donations and funding for development. So of course China hadn't reached where it had during Moi's era, whereby it could actually loan money or give money to African countries for infrastructure development. Now the West was giving us money, but in drips and drabs and tranches to ensure that we don't reach this
and with a
and
thousand
remain
conditionalities.
dependent and remain dependent on them. Yeah.
Absolutely. And there was that interference in our internal policies and our internal runnings of the country. So this is why I keep saying he wasn't existing in situ as a president. You've got to look at the environment within which he was having to operate. So when we say we didn't see economic development with Moi and we saw a sort of huge, sharp rise with Kibaki, you have to take into account Kibaki brought in the Chinese. During Moi's era, the Chinese themselves were fighting to get themselves out of poverty. I think it was 600 million people that they managed to lift out of poverty in a pretty or relatively short space of time. But they were busy and they were insular. They weren't out in the world and making their name heard. Whereas when Kibaki came in, the foreign policy was growing, it had changed, and they were looking to make a footprint and make investments in Africa. So you've got to take that into account. We can't just look at Moi and say, well, Kibaki came and changed everything around. Moi had his hands tied to the West. The human rights record was being used against us. We were being held ransom to democracy for funds that we were being given that would never have developed us anyway. So we've got to look at all those factors before we criticize Moi.
We're looking at the Moi legacy. Also, let's also look at some of the mistakes that we think that man made in his rule as president. Good morning. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I spice it.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
So what we see is heavy downpour in many parts of the city. It's raining on Mombasa Road. It's also raining in different parts of the city as well. So again, not many people are on the road. This is one of those experiences that you savor. Save for the fact that there was the accident on the Thika Superhighway this morning. And I think we now have an ambulance there and we have police on the scene. Previously we did not, but now that is being taken care of. But it has not affected traffic in any way, shape or form. It's one of those golden days in terms of traffic. Let's enjoy it. Well, you can't enjoy it while you're on the road because clearly you're at home. Anything else that pops up, we'd be takers for sure. 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start.
Well, good morning to you. 2 minutes after 8 o'clock. How are you doing? Happy Moi Day. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation on Spice FM, broadcasting in Malindi on 97.6, in Nyeri 90.9. If you're traveling to Eldoret, you'll find us on 96.7. If you're going to Nakuru, anywhere between, even in Naivasha, Nakuru, Molo, you'll find us on 96.0, Kisumu and environs 102.5, Mombasa and its environs, that includes Kilifi as well, 87.9 rather, and Nairobi 94.4. Happy Moi Day.
Fimbo ya nyayo yatuongoza kwenda wapi? Fimbo ya nyayo yatuongoza kwenda mbele.
Remember these days when this was the song that would start the hour. Actually, it used to happen exactly the way I've done it.
It's a bit of sweet,
So
isn't
you have
it?
the news, and then you start with this kind of song.
And then the news would always start with Mutukufu Rais
Yes.
Daniel Arap Moi
Leo
Leo.
katika ikulu ya Nairobi. So we're looking at the Moi days, the Moi legacy, and that's what we're discussing. 0719012600.
I look back with sort of great nostalgia, the days of Moi, perhaps because it was my childhood and it's somewhat going to be nostalgic. But also, I think the way Kenya was, I had a sense of being Kenyan. The sense of identity was there. We all did the same things. I always remember VOK started at a certain time, which was, I think, 4 o'clock, and ended at a certain time with a national anthem. So everybody's thoughts in the country, though homogenous, were all in tandem in terms of what we were thinking. We all watched the same thing, whether it was Tropical Heat or Derek in terms of the detective series. We all sort of were talking the same language. And then you had the introduction, of course, of free media and liberal media, where KTN came in and we started ingesting a little bit more of a sort of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and things changed a bit. But if you remember then, certain programs stood out for me. Those Music Time with Fred Machoka, and he'd come in and he had his signature, same time, same place. And there was something, there was a beat to us that was Kenyan. There was a rhythm that ran through. There was a thread that made us all Kenyan. That national identity we speak of, it's not something I can easily articulate, but the most I've ever felt it was during the Moi era. And then, of course, there was that significant and very symbolic him burning down the ivory. I think that was in 1987. I remember watching that, and that stood out for me as well. So quite a few good memories from the Moi era, the Safari Rally. I remember going to the showground as well.
And the building of Gabions.
Oh, yes. Momonyoko.
Oh yeah, that was the national sort of agenda, wasn't it? Soil erosion, and I think also Help Aged Kenya came into it. We don't have cohesive agendas today, and we don't have any that have any longevity. You know, things start off as a sort of
Teddy
trend, and then they die out.
Teddy the caller was right about generosity. Remember there was the free milk program.
Yeah.
And you had the orange and cream, orange and grey cartons, and they had a little boy running with a story on it at the bottom of the packet.
And then during that same period is when this talk of free education actually began. It was picked up by subsequent governments. Picked up, I think.
Picked up. This is where you stop. This is where you start and stop.
Yes, but I was saying earlier on that there's this thing about us wanting our leaders to be Superman. Leaders are human beings, and to be honest, they will make mistakes as human beings are wont to.
I think you'd be afraid if they didn't.
Actually, I'd be very scared. I'd be very, very scared. And leadership styles also differ. But that's why I premised this whole discussion and said eventuality. when we've looked at the atrocities, when we've looked at the harm, when we've looked at things that people remember, we then ask ourselves, at the end of it, when we balance these things, where are we? Remember, there was a time the president of the country, Jomo Kenyatta, visited Kisumu. It was the first and last time he ever did. A riot broke out. People died. There are people who remember it to date. How the security forces shot at people. And
I understand they were even beating livestock, chickens, trying to get them out of the way as well.
With the time, those stories get a little expanded.
Colourful.
But it wasn't pleasant. People died. Now, if you're talking about people dying, right across the globe, there'll be thousands of examples. But the eventuality, when we've considered all these things and we've balanced them, the very people who were detained in the Moi era, many of them joined the Moi government. Many of them became Moi's friends. Many of them worked with Moi in their lifetime. If you look at how the government grew the inclusivity that became KANU, that's the eventuality I'm talking about. If you look at the people in leadership right now, they were all in KANU at some point. So you could even argue that there was that influence of Moi in their lives at some point politically.
It's the only party that's outlasted all its leaders, isn't it?
It
And
is.
keeps going. I belong to KANU.
It is.
Actually.
It is.
Where you moved to ODM last week. Just only last week. Moi is saying...
Jerry categorically told you that we are all capable of having two opposing ideologies
Moi
running through our
said,
system.
Your mind is
to
allowed
one principle.
contradictions.
Yes,
so
it's allowed.
I'm feeling KANU today. And it's actually the only party that has outlasted or outlived any of its founders, I think.
Completely. I mean, if you consider what it was, it wasn't the favored party by the colonialists at independence. Not really. No, KADU, which Moi is credited with having formed the Ronald Ngala, was credited. The ones who advocated for a Majimbo system, which is what we have with devolution. Yes. So, in essence, Moi is having the last laugh, isn't he?
yes.
And also it can suggest, it's the only party that's out there, and its purpose isn't to serve as a special purpose vehicle to get any particular person into parliament or government or presidency. So it might be one of those parties that we could revamp and create an ideology around, and those ideologies could emanate from some of Moi's policies of love, peace and unity.
But if you look at the ideologies that
So
all
if
these
they
other
need
parties,
a communications expert to do that, I'm here.
No, Jerry, we got the job application.
plug.
We got the job application.
KANU.
Plug.
You see, consider this. The ideologies that we had, oddly enough, we knew of KANU. One actually believed in the things they said. And why one believed it, one actually saw them trying to do the very things they said they would do.
Absolutely.
That was the thing. You saw it. One of the things people don't seem to understand, probably because they haven't traveled around the country, one of the things that I have found shocking is just what the government has done since independence. Shocking. The development, the things they have done in the health sector, the things they've done, it's shocking. People don't visit, so they don't know. You'll find health facilities in some remote areas that you didn't think you would, properly built up. What would be strange about it is that people don't go there because you don't have staff members who do. Yes.
It's no longer equipped.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
but it
no
exists.
personnel, but it's there. The
They're
structure is there.
It's there. And if you're talking about roads, you will know this road was once tarmac because there are remnants of the tarmac. It isn't completely gone because whatever aggregate they put in probably still in place, so the road is still passable. Now, some of these things were done immediately after independence. It's a legacy. Now, legacies by their very nature in political terms is something that is inherited and continued. We call Moi Nyayo because that's what he said. He started by saying, I am merely following up and continuing with what was started by the first president. He was following in the footsteps. And the presidents who've come after Moi may not have said that this is what they're doing, but that's what they do.
It's
And they-
evident that it is.
Yes, because even if you look at development plans, by their very nature, they are not short-term projects. They never are.
Yeah.
And most government projects will outlive a presidency. With our two-term presidency, it'll outlive it. So the next president will have to take whatever it is that the other one did and run with it to the end. So when you look at this particular government, amidst all the criticism that I personally have levied against it, the one thing to their credit is that they have continued faithfully.
They have fought at Nyayo.
They have. Specifically when it comes to infrastructure and roads.
Right.
They have. They haven't faltered on that one.
Looking back at those years, you said the first 5 years of the Moi rule, 78 to 82, were on an upward trajectory.
They were considered some of the best years.
And then 1982 happened.
It happened.
And then after 1982, we also then saw the declaration that Kenya is going to be a de jure one-party state, the Section 2A coming in.
Yes.
Let's look at that. The impact, what positive or negative impacts do you actually have of those 82 to 92 where we had one party?
Well, for starters,
82 to
cohesion.
90.
Cohesion in the country, of course, is very significant given we're multi-ethnic. And some of our historical differences date back, or some of our differences, cultural differences, date back historically. And when we were divided up or cut into the country that is Kenya, I don't think the colonialists or those at the Berlin meeting that did this took into account any of our differences or similarities. That's why you'll find Maasais in Tanzania, and across the border you have Maasais in Kenya. So there's cultural differences that we have to take into account. And when leading a country, the idea of cohesion becomes crucial. Nyerere did this very well in creating one Tanzania, united Tanzania, an image of Tanzania, an identity that is Tanzanian. And I think Moi was well on the way to doing this. And one of the things that a one-party democracy ensured was that we didn't have tribal divisions at a political level, or that we couldn't politicize our tribal differences, which was crucial because we've seen the consequences of doing so. This was in 2007 when we were at the brink of civil war, because what we did was, politicize our tribal differences. So in having a one-party democracy, it's similar to China as well. You have more control over the people, yes, and which we needed. You don't want the sort of democracy that is evinced in the West. Before you've before you've reached economic development, I keep saying this, you need an element of control to a certain extent whilst you're trying to reach economic development. So
was a mistake maybe that the top leadership of that one party stayed the same? Maybe if we had
it was
come
the
up with
longevity within that Moi's era, that people there was an unbearable ennui, a lackluster, a bored, a tiredness, and anything that went wrong was then blamed subsequently on him, and people didn't look at the environment in which he was doing these things. And I keep pointing to the West and what was going on in the West, and the loans and the IMF conditions that we had been given, and the structural adjustment programs that we had to do, and the fact that the IMF wasn't looking for us to develop. It wasn't looking for infrastructure projects that would make us self-sustainable economically and that would give us, would generate revenue where we can pay back the loans. No, this was a very codependent relationship, or a dependent relationship that they had built with us. And of course, what was different during the Kibaki era is that the Chinese came out into the world from their insular position, and they were able to lend money to us. And of course, there was zero interference with our internal matters.
a counterbalance. Do you think, as I do, that if we had actually allowed better internal democracy in the party KANU, in the one-party KANU, maybe would actually have lived longer with just the one-party system?
No, the pressure from the international community was mounting. It was mounting on Moi, and he succumbed to it in the end. I mean, we were being held hostage to loans and repayments and interest rates if we don't democratize. Remember, there was also, as CT rightly pointed out, the Cold War, where there was the East and the West, and the West really wanted to highlight their authority and the impact on Africa, and wanted us to be fully democratized and follow their capitalist agendas and their democracy, which of course was at loggerheads with Eastern philosophies and what they were doing. So the West wouldn't have continued to support us, and we were quite reliant on their aid and donations and loans and so on. So no, they wouldn't have supported a situation where we have something like we see in China, where it's a one-party state but a democracy of sorts.
It's a one-party democracy. This thing of multi-party, the only time that you have democracy is when it's preceded by multi-party.
That's what the West wants to tell us.
Want us to believe.
Yes.
That democracy must be that there is an extra party. But you can have internal pluralism within the one unit.
If you look at democracy and what it actually is, it means that, so if you have multi-party, the ruling party actually is the one who takes control of government and how the country works.
Yep.
That means that you really, unfortunately, don't have a say. It means that, yes, you put up a fair fight or fair competition when one party then comes into rule. but then you allow them to see out their rule. That's what democracy is. It doesn't mean that you elect one person or one group or one entity and then we all come together and then agree how things are going to be run. No. You're basically giving the power to one section. That's what you're doing. And it doesn't mean that we all come together and now all of us have our spoons and we're mixing together this political broth.
But you can do that. Why can't you do that? If you have actually, you look at an entire political party structure from the bottom up. If you actually allow people to come and compete and say the one with the best ideas is the one that we are all putting into that position. So we are basically saying that you as an independent party member, I as an independent party member, we are going to the people and saying, whose ideas do you believe are better? And so if you win, you become the local party leader, the local party chairman, the regional party chairman, the national party chairman. And that brings in that diversity. The local party chairman for this area and the local party chairman for that other area will actually have differences. But they all ascribe to one or subscribe to one national ideal, and that's the nationalism.
Yeah, okay. Food for thought.
It would be great if that worked, yes.
0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Happy Moi Day. You can call in and also wish us Happy Moi Day and wish somebody a Happy Moi Day as you tell us what you think and what you remember of the Moi era. Jerry actually mentioned them. We've talked about the Nyayo era milk. We've talked about the things that we used to see that brought us together as a country in those days, what we used to feel as a country. It was one nationhood and statehood. What is it that we may remember about that? Also, let's hear from you. 0719-012-600. It's 18 minutes after 8 o'clock. This is Spice FM.
It's not every day that you meet a centenarian. Take, for example, the Standard Group. We have been here for over 100 years, and our secret to longevity has been but one: the magic of service. The magic of serving you, our customers, has given us so much life, and we could not have been here without you. We thank you, and we will continually endear to serve you to our level best. The Standard Group Customer Service Week. You mean the world to us.
Online, on digital, and on radio. This is Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Good morning and happy Moi Day. So walking down memory lane, reminiscing on what Moi days were like. We've talked about it politically. We've talked about economically Moi's successes and what could be conceived or perceived as failures in terms of economic growth, and looked at the scenario environment within which he was operating as a president. And of course, we have to keep in mind globalization hadn't taken place the way it has now, and we didn't have international relations. I keep stressing this. China was not available. If it wasn't for China, we wouldn't be where we are. Kibaki took advantage of the Chinese route. He looked east, and China was willing to lend money in a manner that didn't interfere with our internal policies, and in a manner that we could actually develop to a point where we were sustainable, self-sustainable, and of course generating revenue enough to pay back the loans. That wasn't in the case in Moi's days. Moi's days, it was the international community, or the international community to us then was restricted to the West, i.e. America, the UK, some European countries, and of course they had their agenda that they were trying to impose on us, and as a result there were strict terms and conditions with any lending they might have given us.
Let's hear from people who are listening in this morning. 0719-012-600. Good morning, Lydia.
Good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Lydia. Happy Moi Day.
Thank you very much, and wish you all the same.
Thank you.
We have a lot of experience under President Moi. But first, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta his government was under the East African Community.
Mm-hmm.
The cost was very low. A loaf of bread was 3 shillings.
Uh-huh.
Salaries were also very small within these costs. Then we had a shop on Kenyatta Avenue.
Mm-hmm.
Under President Kenyatta, the trade license was 150 shillings that we had to pay to Commerce and Industry.
Mm-hmm.
Then came President Moy. He removed the trade license he did everything by a roadside law. He would stand on the road and speak, and that was the law. Then he said the trade license should now be paid to City Council. City Council gave us our water, managed the sewer, the bins and the sewer. As soon as he transferred the trade license to City Council, the City Council didn't want to deal with water, they didn't want to deal with your bins, they didn't want to deal with sewer. They only were after the trade license. From 150 shillings, they demanded 6,000 shillings. This is how President Moy increased the cost of living. Then everything was a chaos. They would just cut the biro of your 6,000. If you paid 6,000 last year, go and bring 12. So now that 6,000 would go, the one that's printed would go into the records, and the biro that cancelled and said 12, that I don't know where it went.
Okay, so you
Then
experienced some negative effects of some of the
It would
policies that were
just
put into
go
place.
On and on and on. Then Count Bolatti owned the International Casino. He would give us orders of sisal baskets. We were on Kenyatta Avenue. There were Luo shops, Kikuyu shops, Mukamba shops, and then our shop, the tourists would say, I want this, that, and that. Here are my dollars. And they would take. Our shop would get empty. So I would go to the Luo shops, Kikuyu shops, bring their stock, help them to sell theirs. It would be empty. Bring more, bring
So
more.
you worked together as a community as well, Lydia, if I hear you correct. So, you know, as a community, you were able to work together as a business
Yes,
community,
yes.
not necessarily
Yes.
looking at one another from the angle of tribe, from the lens
Then,
of tribe.
Yes.
Right.
yes.
Thank you very much, Lydia, and have a good Moi
No, I
Day
would-
today. Right. So the number to call is 0719-012-600. You can also post your comment on Spice FM KE. That's why we are live streaming today on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. We're looking at today being Moi Day. What actually we are supposed to be doing is look back as a country, as a nation. And I think that's what Nduyu will want to discuss next, is as a nation and what we stand for and where our heritage comes in as a country.
Well, there are very many factors that need to be taken into consideration when looking at the positive and sustainable development of a nation. And I think that heritage, cultural heritage, does have a major role to play in this. And I think we cannot divorce ourselves from the importance that it would take when that we seem to be grappling with so much. We've had discussions here where we've tried to ask ourselves and say, what really is our national identity? And it's something that even after, 56 years of independence here in Kenya.
Mathematics, 19 minus 3.
Etc. What?
Is that your little method and technique?
All right, 50 plus years of independence in this country. 50 plus years of independence in this country, still battling with what the identity is. And if we want to look further than that, it's clear that it's not because there was no identity, but the vision of it was split by virtue of the fact that, cultural blocks were split by virtue of the fact that Kenya within its borders was made what it actually is. People are grappling with what a national identity is because facets of that were kind of taken away. So then to be able to bring it together and say, where does our cohesion lie? And I think it is very important to look at those incidences when the country can come together and actually be one. And that is what will be positive indicators as to what a national identity would be. And we can go even further and say, what is our heritage? And how does that help us now then develop factors for what would take us forward in terms of sustainable development? And it is one thing that we cannot ignore, because once we are together, we talked about it now. If you look at the social pillar, when people have come together, when they're able to identify with themselves, you create an environment where it is then easier for economic development to take place. And it cannot be ignored as such. we've tried. There's so many incidences where we've tried in this country to come up with an identity, to find out what the identity is for this nation. I believe that there have been times where we try to come up with a national dress, for example, and say what it is.
Yeah.
What is it that we can identify with? And that failed not because the PR sector did not do its job or because Kenyans didn't know. It failed because it really didn't hit the nail on the head in terms of what the identity was or what it is, or even what our heritage is in Kenya specifically. If we point ourselves in the direction of under which things then do come together, there are very many instances. And this, what we see happening this weekend, for example, is one typical example where Kenyans are then able to come together because one man can actually go and again put Kenya on the map in terms of of attention, everybody watching at once. Those are indicators of something that people could again come together. And I say that we should then be deliberate about cohesion, about maintaining what you want to almost call bliss if we're going to get out of this non-development or this staggering development that we continually find ourselves in.
You know, one of the things that, well, it's not one, it's one of many things that are running through my mind as you're speaking. You know, we may be looking for something we already have. You see, when we say you're looking for a national identity, the concept of comparison comes in. We are looking at a national identity which is akin to what other nations or countries have as part of their national identity. And this isn't as easy to sum up as it sounds when you speak about it. Because one, we can't talk about the West because the evolutionary process that their particular countries have gone through to get to the point where they have what you think is a national identity is not even ethnic based. No. Most of it is economic based. The thing that brings them together is they share a certain idea of how an economy should run. Their idea of nationhood is embedded in probably the leadership that amalgams around what they call a parliament and a set of rules that are found in what they call a constitution. So that's the commonality. Like, for instance, if I were to ask you the identity of the American, they have a system which ensures that people are constantly told about their country. So patriotism is as a result of something akin to indoctrination. It isn't what the Americans do isn't very different from what the Chinese do. It isn't different from what the Russians do.
It's indoctrination, actually, if you want to look at it. Yeah.
So
that's one of the tools.
Yeah.
Yes. So what are we saying? That we haven't had an opportunity to be indoctrinated? Or are we saying that we have an identity that doesn't quite fit in with other identities that are known?
It's perfectly okay. I think there is an identity, but we've not used it. We've not looked at it as important enough to then be able to identify clearly what it is, then to use it as a tool for this sustainable development that we're talking about. I think we've not even seen it as important, and I think it is definitely important.
Actually, we do. You see, there's a characteristics that Kenyans have that is actually found. It's something that we inherited without, probably unknowingly from our colonizers. It's a concept of euphemism. Kenyans are not now known to be very loud about what they think or feel. We tend to be understated. So even when it comes to the sort of things you're saying, ask, for instance, when we've had severe situations of drought and need, and there's been a call for Kenyans to support, do you see them coming out in numbers?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Especially when the call, it's interesting, especially when the call comes from a non-governmental or non-leadership-based individual. And you'll find that Kenyans will gather round. And this is the example that I was giving, for example. Here we have Kipchoge, who's running this weekend. Nothing to do with government, nothing to do with policy, nothing to do with leadership in that area, but having everything to do with leadership in how he's able to bring Kenyans together, bring food together, have a drive that will then be able to feed Kenyans. And I'm saying, just like you're saying, it doesn't have to be a heritage, or it doesn't have to be a culture that is akin to what other nations have in terms of dress, food, etc. But it could be something that is clear, succinct, that it is evident happens here within the borders of this country, that can be used to then identify the nation by, and then can be further used to push this country forward. And if it can be harped upon, and we're talking about very simple things that you use as tools of communication. For example, what we could have done, I mean, it's a day two, what we could have done with this Kipchoge it could have been all over the country in more ways than it has been done now. And that is because, look, it kind of is indoctrination, because they then kind of use media, you use, talk shops, and you do several things where you're getting people to understand that, yes, this is one thing that unites us, and this can be the thing that sets us out there as a country, and these are the things that we come together on, and upon that is what we can now base what we want to use as a tool to then move forward. It's not used
true
as it should be.
I want to give an example. This time it's not the UK, it's the US.
Okay.
For instance,
okay, you one of the things that an American will talk to you about is their rights, without fail. Even when they go to a country that don't particularly understand their brand of rights, they'll talk about their rights because they believe in it. And why? Because they've seen it work over and over. But it also allows them to speak against something that goes against those rights and to speak about it loudly. Kenyans aren't loud in that way. We tend to acquiesce. That's our nature. We tend to go along. We tend to avoid confrontation. That's what Kenyans do. So sometimes when we argue about some of the things that we ought to do as Kenyans, are we saying that we should change character? We should do things differently? Because we do have an identity. It's not that we don't have one, we do. It's just that it isn't what you'd call the ideal that people normally speak of, but we do have it.
So let's speak about our identity and our heritage.
I think the word I want us to use today is nation building.
Nation building. All right, that's the word that Jerry would like us to use today. 28 minutes to 9 o'clock. Call us in 0719-012-600. We'll be taking a look at the traffic shortly. If you've got anything, please, Situation Room, hashtag Situation Room, let us know.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Traffic.
So Mombasa Road has joined the foray, and we have yet another accident where a small car has managed to get under the belly of a trailer, unfortunately, and that has happened this morning and joined Thika Road in the accident prone. I don't understand. There's no traffic at all on the roads. We should have been able to avoid something like this, and yet we are talking about it now. So that's the situation on Mombasa Road right now. Police are on the scene trying to clear that out of there so that you can get moving. So there is a bit of traffic as a result of this accident on Mombasa Road.
So two accidents this morning.
Thika
Road, Mombasa Road.
Could be because of the rain, I don't know, or it could just because we had said Kenyans are patient before, but now in this case maybe impatient.
We said they're impatient.
Oh, we said they're impatient? Oh,
yes. Yeah.
There's a glaring example.
That's why they pay bribes to fasten up processes.
I hope these are not people who are actually driving after a night of
drinking. It's not a bad word, Eric.
Merrymaking.
Yes.
Celebrating.
There you have it. I hope no news will come about more accidents, but do be safe wherever it is you are going. Let us know if you see something that we should know about. 0719-012-600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
This is a song from the 80s. I've been thinking about, no, that's not it. This is I'm Burning by Yvonne Chaka Chaka. Good morning, and how are you doing? 20 minutes to 9 o'clock. This is Spice FM broadcasting from Nairobi on 94.4 to Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. And also we are live streaming on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. You can follow us on Twitter, that is Spice FM KE, and the hashtag to our conversation every morning is hashtag Situation Room. In the Situation Room, we have C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, Ndu Oko, and I'm Eric Latif. We are talking about our heritage and identity.
Giving the example, or I mean, it's interesting to draw parallels, not for instant replication, but obviously just seeing the way in which it's done. You know, City was looking at the US and how it happens, and I think across the world, and I don't think we have another country with something akin to the Patriot Act, for example, which was enacted by the United States. Essentially what it means is that anybody who would commit a crime or an offense which saw any kind of threat against the United States as a government or as an entity was then accused of being, you know, unpatriotic, as in something that they take so very dearly.
Essentially, it amounts to being treasonable.
Treasonable, exactly. And so you are then, if found guilty, which you are almost 100% likely to be found thereof, then you are, you know, sentenced to a lifetime in prison, or sometimes, you know, even worse, whatever that would be. But it goes to the point that they hold in terms of how they've having built the importance of their nation, not in what you can see, but in the minds of the people, that it is held so importantly that you could actually be convicted of a crime if you go against that. And that comes from people out external and as well as internal in the country. So we are saying that we don't necessarily have to come up with tenets like that, but to say that it is something that you have seen, that the nation, being a patriot, taking the identity of a nation so seriously that it is something that everybody else knows about, and that they can identify you as being from Kenya because of 1, 2, 3. Taking it so importantly and letting it bring such cohesion that upon that platform you can then now to see things like sustainable development having taken place, because you already have a premise having been set on peace and coming together.
Ndu, let me ask you, if there were a whole, say a group of Africans hanging out together, is it easy to identify Kenyan?
For me, I would be able to have
it is.
Yes, I also think so.
Yes.
They say it is.
The one who is probably the most silent and kind of would just kind of, you know, go along. Oh, yes. And kind of go along with what was said. Absolutely. Absolutely.
No.
Eric,
well, number one, loud will become from West Africa.
You have to differentiate between what we call idiosyncrasies of a people, which is sort of small nuances, behaviors, and habits, from the idea of nationhood and feeling loyal to state institutions, which is what nationhood is about. So, in being able to identify, I could identify anybody Kenyan in any country, especially outside the country, but this would be based on idiosyncrasies. There would be mannerisms and nuances that I would pick up, or maybe forget even accent, even certain lingo, languages, and reactions to certain things, and I'd be able to say that's a Kenyan. But that is not a direct correlation, or it's not a reflection in any way, shape, or form of the state of our nationhood. It's not to say we have a national identity per se. Just because the English drink tea, it doesn't mean that is their national identity. It's an idiosyncrasy. The national identity would then come with things like Big Ben, or so there's also symbolism and iconography, imagery that sort of brings up, or
I think they've identified high tea as one of their identities, actually.
Yeah. Excuse me. High tea is an activity that they do, but the idea of just drinking tea is just a British habit, for instance. It's not something you would then say it's part of our nation. Do you see what I mean? What I'm trying to do is separate or make a distinction between nuances and idiosyncrasies and state identity or national identity.
Having said that, at the same time, if, for example, you just like you talked about the American and their rights and the way in which they say things, if the minute they open their mouth, you would be able to tell. And it's something that they all kind of do. It's something that it's like an unagreed, unspoken convention that they all kind of know this is the kind of thing that we're talking. If having been faced with a situation that they had to deal with that would affect their rights, for example, or you come against them as a person of their country, the way in which they would be able to speak to you or respond to that threat which was coming to them, you would be able to tell right away if this individual was from the US or if this individual was from the UK by virtue of what they were able to, how they would answer you. And that's what I'm saying. What then identifies Kenya as Kenyans, upon which leaders in country then will be able to say, yes, this is the thing that sets us apart. And from that, then I will build my country.
Our
And
negativity
from
towards-
that, then I will build
No,
nationhood, build
the
the
key
people.
ingredients should be your core beliefs and values.
Exactly.
If those are homogenized and usually from a good place, and then that can be sort of brought to the fore of the country, but people can be galvanized around these, then you'll start to see, yes, and a national identity starts to emerge. So something like democracy and you know, these rights that people talk about Americans having, that would be a core belief that was entrenched, because of course at the cornerstone of the foundation of America is their constitution. That almost was the crystallization of forming America. So that's their history. We have a very different history, which comes from a struggle for independence and freedom, and maybe we can form that as part of our cornerstone in terms of our national identity, so our resilience and our sovereignty, and then form a belief system. At the moment, our belief system is primarily Christianity and religion based, so we don't have other belief systems. Remember, we were also somewhat polarized in terms of tribes and ethnicity, so we had different belief systems and we weren't able to bring them under one umbrella to form a country. So these are some of the dimensions and dynamics we actually have to consider when we look at creating a national identity and the idea of state building, that there are bottlenecks. There's a historical context we have to take into account. There's the fact that we were interrupted. There's the fact that some of our cultural traditions and practices were demonized by the colonials. There's the fact that we're aspiring to Western ideals on a lot of issues, from sort of our governance systems being democracy right through to things like capitalism and things like that. Are those things inherently Kenyan?
But how would you actually even crystallize it? I'm even thinking the example that we're using this morning of America. So yes, they've got democracy, they've got a constitution, but I think even deeper than that, in what makes them feel proud of who they are, of what they do, where they come from, of what America represents, is those words: the land of the free, the home of the brave.
You
The
have to
rags to
understand.
riches
Yeah,
ethos.
Yes.
Plus, you have to
The
understand that
opportunities.
the first settlers who came together and pitched the Union Jack where they did in what is now Pennsylvania, when they did that, you have to look at where they were coming from. It was they were running towards where they could
They
be
were seeking
free.
freedom.
Yes, they were seeking freedom, and then they were coming to look at now where they could then create. Those two things were very, very important to them: freedom, and then the creation of wealth as individuals, and then coming together to do that. So that was the belief from the get-go, and they've held on to that even till now. And if you look
the
through,
land of
it's the land of the
opportunities.
free, it's the land of opportunities, it's the
Home
melting
of the
pot. So
brave.
everybody can come together, and that's something that they've been able to build on, and they continue to build on. But the foundation never changes. The foundation of their creed and belief never changes, and that was what they built the country on in the first place. It was not a homogeneous set of people, except in their creed, because you had people coming from all over the world. You had
Yep.
people coming from the UK, from
They
Great
ended up
Britain.
there.
You had people from Spain. You had people from the Scandinavian countries who came together. But initially, the British settlers, who were the first ones, as they would say, they were running to where they could have this freedom to then go ahead and create wealth. So the building of the nation was based on that belief.
America is a bit of an anomaly, because with them they could actually construct from the beginning what their identity was going to be. So it was the equivalent of forming a club with a set of rules and ideals. And what happened, excuse me, I don't know what's wrong this morning. And what happens is you join the club. So it was this club of opportunities that people would leave their countries and cross the Atlantic and go and join this club. So America was slightly different in that also America doesn't have a deep and rich history, other than, of course, of the original American people, i.e. I think Red
The Native
Indians.
Americans.
Red Indians is politically
Native-
incorrect. Isn't
Native
it? The Native
Native
Americans.
Americans,
The Native Americans. So other than them, the Americans who we see today as America, they could actually write their history as they went along, in terms of they could construct their identity. So they created this club, Land of the Free and Opportunities and so on, and then invited people to join them. So they worked the other way. Whereas with us, we're having to re-establish who we really are. So to rethink and reimagine who we are as Kenyans, having had quite a few interruptions, and then now realizing in order for us to exist in this sort of new world order and this idea of democracy, we need to be a little bit more deliberate about our nation
How about
building.
looking at
so
our
that
flag? Because our
the flag is iconography, flag,
No,
national anthem,
from
religion.
what the flag represents. Because
Mhm.
if you look at what the flag represents, it represents that freedom. We are coming from a different statehood, and then we have this blood represents our struggle, our common struggle for independence.
Mhm.
Green represents our opportunities that we have.
Green
White,
is land, or green is not the land?
Eric, you are
Land
right.
is
You
opportunities
see,
that
our
we
national
have, right?
identity has to do with certain commonalities.
And the black is that we
things
are
we
all
identify
black.
with and agree upon on a daily basis.
Yes.
We're not all black, but
That's our identity, and
We're
that's
black.
why the traits that Njeri speak of actually are a composite part of this so-called identity. You see, when you speak of America, tongue-in-cheek, the thing I found profound, these are people who are running away from oppression to freedom, and then proceed to oppress people where they have found them. The very thing that they ran away from is the very thing they
came to
meted on the
practice it.
people, the natives that they met. When people speak about Americans, you know, the Native Americans come last.
Unfortunately.
And they are the original owners of that particular space. They come last. You talk about the English, the other. And yet, the people whose land it actually was, again, as I said, come last. So, when you speak of national identity, we only seem to think of the positive things. Now, remember, the colonialist bequeathed us something that it was not intended for our good, but it can be used for our good. They introduced this issue of identity in the way they treated us. See, they saw us as a certain type of people. And without knowing it, we have been working our way out of that, trying to say, we are not what you say you are. When people revolt, they're telling you, we disagree with you.
Right.
What we think, and we're going to continue disagreeing with you until you understand that we are not what you think you are. Because what you think of us is what determines how you treat us.
Yes.
So in a sense, their legacy, in a sense, helped us find our identity. Because in the absence of that identity, we wouldn't have been called Kenyans.
Exactly.
Remember, we are a nation because we all believe that we belong to this place.
We belong here.
That's what makes
This
us a
is
nation.
our home.
If you don't, then you don't have nationhood.
And what distinguishes us from them is also our melanin.
There's actually an Indian tribe now that was incorporated into the tribes of Kenya. Indian.
Yes.
So when you say melanin, I'm
No,
assuming you're
it's-
talking about color.
Yeah, it's
So black
it's
is
metaphorically
important. Do you have to
speaking,
be
just looking
black
at this
to be
from that
Kenyan?
And
point.
by the
No,
way,
no.
and Jerry, no one is really ever black. Not really. You're just dark brown. No one is really
Well,
ever
yes, I mean,
black.
colloquially.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
it's because of that. Well, what were we using to identify ourselves as? So we are the Kenyans.
So
the
colour was
Africans.
one
The
of-
color was one
one
of
of
them
them.
because one of the tools of oppression was also color. So we said these people of this
Color was a
were
tool of
oppressed.
oppression.
Yes.
Or they used
That-
color,
they
our
used
color against us.
They used color
Okay.
against us, right?
And
So-
even to rally their people, because if you say these are uncivilized people who require civilizing, and so they need religion, then you rally your own people to your cause.
To your cause.
Because the process of colonization now is painted as something that will achieve good. Yes. And it appeals to those who are that way inclined.
Oh, absolutely. They're not going to sort of sell it to their own people as an evil doing and control and grabbing of our land. It's going to be looked at almost as aid, the way we look at aid today from the international community. We're going to save these people from their savagery ways, so to speak.
So while giving them what we see as something good, and from
What
the
they
back
need, what we think
taking
they
what
need.
we need from them. I mean, we have to really look at how it really was presented and what the intentions were.
I think we
But
should
if we-
discuss next week reparations from.
I mean, consider
the
if
UK.
you're thinking of nationhood, you're talking about the Patriot Act. One of the things that galvanized the Americans and the issue of nationhood and patriotism came to the fore was after September 11th.
Right.
An external enemy always works, by the way, with any
and I've
country.
said it here, it works here in Kenya. I have never seen Kenyans come together like after the two major terrorist attacks that happened within Nairobi. There were others that happened outside of Nairobi, but the two that happened in Nairobi after Westgate,
It's
and then
clear
again at Dusit,
visibility
it was
of unity.
clear that Kenyans could come together on one front, and that is that they did not want the external threat to rear its head again, whether it was one person who died or whether it was 50 who died. And we've seen that external threat would often do that to a people. Now, on national identity or nationhood, it's something that continues to build. We didn't have the opportunity to start from the beginning, as it were, because, other people came in and basically kind of did that for us. And then when they were done with whatever they did, they kind of left. Or when the people said, we're not going to take this anymore, they had to go.
Yeah.
So then we now had to start rewriting and had to start building and start from the beginning. It's not something that's set in stone that we say it's got to be done by June 2020, like how KRA has to collect some taxes.
Yep.
But it is something that will take time to do. But we have to be still, regardless of how long it will take, it is something that we have to be deliberate about, because it does have its benefits and the things that it will enable this country to do, which we find ourselves in right now. In terms of sustainable development, it's very difficult to develop a country that's divided. We've talked so many times about how we're divided on tribal lines here. How wonderful would it be if we had something that would bring us together, for us to associate ourselves on one level playing field? How much easier would it be for then a leadership to move in and then make sure that we take this country to the next?
Tell me,
it's clear
Ndu,
it happens.
What about in Nigeria? You could give us a wider perspective or broader perspective with African countries. Do you feel there's a national identity that Nigeria has, and the idea of statehood is more entrenched in Nigeria than it is in Kenya?
Well, I don't think it is more entrenched. I think also Nigerians are learning to. But one thing that actually comes out very clearly is that of resilience. And you'll find that from the people. From the very beginning, even when, there was because 100% colonialism did not take place in Nigeria. And before, the British had a chance to really figure out what was going on, they were bundled out. Now, the clear resilience.
That's the narrative.
Before they had a chance. Although she does speak a great deal of truth. Just from my personal experiences, even with Nigerians, you'll see there's a sense of pride that they have that I felt was somewhat wanting in us Kenyans. Say, being abroad in the diaspora, what you'd find is Nigerians were not trying to emulate anything European or Western. They're quite resistant to the westernization that we so crave as Kenyans, and actually use to demarcate our level of either sort of class in Kenya. The more westernized you are, the classier you are, the better you are. Nigerians embrace their traditions and actually go out there and almost sell them to the world. And we've seen this in their music and their culture. They're now exporting it, where Nigerian music has actually become a global phenomenon. The way, Jamaican music, reggae, was globally accepted and enjoyed. Nigerian music will now play in a club in Vienna, for instance. You're not going to find, a Kikuyu tune going down in...
Hardly.
And I think that resilience, then, I mean, we've not gotten to the place where that kind of resilience or that kind of pride, although it is something that does bring Nigerians together, we've not yet actualized to the point whereby leadership and governance will use that cohesion to propel the country forward, and especially when it comes to sustainable development. And I also, interestingly enough, I also talk about resilience because we can see very clearly that the people are resilient in terms of what has happened with grand corruption in Nigeria, with what has happened with inadequate distribution of resources across the country. Nigerians are still resilient in the fact that they will continue to try and make it happen because they're still proud of whom they are and whom they want to be, even proud of who they are not yet. So what I'm saying is that we can be very deliberate about what we do, taking something and amplifying it, magnifying it to the point that it does become a reality. And I think we're sometimes afraid to say, can we just unravel this and start from the beginning? We can. Others have done it. We can do it and even surge ahead better. Sounds like an inspirational.
No, it does, but please bear in mind.
Yes, we can.
Motivational.
Nationhood, nation identity is actually a collective product. And even the nation's history plays a part in the identity.
No,
Yes.
absolutely.
Bloodlines, families, dynasties, all these things play a part in nationhood because it's what you identify with. The salient and quite distinct characteristics we say of Kenyans, that's the identity. You see, remember when I talked about comparison and comparing it to the other nation's identity, you forget we actually have an identity. What we keep discussing is we don't particularly like our identity. And we'd like it to be like something else. But we do have an identity. It's a very clear one. Very, very clear.
No, we borrow too much from other countries, even
That's
in weddings.
our identity.
You'll see our mothers wearing Nigerian attire to Kenyan weddings. No, you can't say our identity is that we don't have an
Kenyans
identity. I
are encouraged to
refuse to
mark the day
philosophize
with
that.
selfless acts of service to their community that seek to promote patriotism, national unity, social justice, cohesion, and sustainable development in their communities for the benefit of present and future generations. That's Moi Day, what it is for you. Good morning, 9 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything I Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Traffic.
Like I said, there's no traffic. A few accidents here and there, but it's still kind of rainy on the roads. Everybody's in and reflecting and doing what CS Matiang'i said we should do. And, selfless acts of patriotism, love and care for your fellow man and your fellow Kenyan. That is what is happening. Nobody's on the roads because we're listening to directives from the government. That's your traffic update. 0719-012-600. If you see anything else, that is.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
2 minutes after 9 o'clock. Good morning, and how are you doing? Happy Moi Day. This is The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are on Spice FM KE on Facebook, on www.spicefm.co.ke, on our website. Also, our Twitter handle is Spice FM KE. Our hashtag is Situation Room. We're discussing identity, nationhood, our heritage as Kenyans. What is it that actually brings us together, unites us, that becomes, that forms the core of us as Kenyans?
I don't think when you're talking about nationhood or nation building or, cultural heritage, that you are looking at something negative. I don't think that is definitely positive thing. It shouldn't be negative. It's something positive that you would then use, whether for external use or internal use. And internal use in this case, I'm saying that it is something so clear and so distinct that even those who are put in positions of power and leadership then understand that this thing is what we are going to use to push this country forward. And it sounds so simplistic, but that is actually a formula for how it would work. That you see that this is the one thing that brings our people together as a nation. We're going to amplify it. We're going to use the arms of government that we have to make it clearly national, and then from there we're going to use that for sustainable development. We're going to use that for continued cohesion of the people, and that's what I'm saying. Jerry, just before we went to the break, had refused that. He said just because we can't make an identity from not having an identity.
That can't be our identity.
No. That's her interpretation of what I'm saying. You see, I'm actually stating a diversity that exists. And that's what she's calling a non-identity.
Let's bring in everybody else into the conversation. Kenya's biggest conversation, 0719-012-600. Going into Mombasa. Bajida, good morning.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Very fine, thank you. Welcome to The Situation Room.
Thank you very much, bwana. Mimi nilikuwa nataka kuongea Kiswahili.
Tafadhali.
Sawa.
Sasa mimi nilikuwa nazungumza bwana, hii wakati wa Moi na wakati wa Kenyatta. Unakumbuka wakati wa Kenyatta alileta meli hapa, akanunua meli Harambee. Na meli hiyo ikafanya kazi kwa miaka 3. Meli hiyo ikanunua meli nyingine inaitwa Jogoo. Na wakati wa Kenyatta akaleta hizi cooperative mashirika. Mashirika hizi, watu vijana wakitoka university walikuwa wanapata attachment katika hizo mashirika. Lakini hizo mashirika hivi sasa haziko. Ukiangalia hizo meli sasa hakuna, na ilikuwa kwenye wakati wa East African Community. East African Community Moi alivyoingia alivunja, na hizo mashirika sasa zimekufa. Leo vijana wamekuwa hawana kazi, hakuna mahali watapata ajira, na vijana wamekuwa conjection, na wamesoma sana, ni wengi. Sasa hebu niambia, ya maisha haya tutapeleka vipi? Leo mnatuambia habari ya Moi Day, kwamba Moi alikuwa alifanya vitu vizuri, lakini je, Moi kweli alifanya vitu vizuri? Hata maziwa ya Nyayo aliwapatia watoto, lakini alafu wale wafugaji waliokuwa wakipeleka maziwa katika KCC walilipwa pesa zao. Je, walipolipwa zile pesa zao, KCC ilikwenda wapi? Ilikufa. Unaona bwana? Kwa hivyo ndio vitu tunataka turegeshe hizo cooperatives zikirudi, vijana wapate ajira. Hizo meli zetu za Harambee na Jogoo zirudi, ndio Kenya iweze kuenuka katika East African, katika International Maritime Organization. Unaona? Sasa vitu vingi viliharibika. Unaona?
Okay.
Kwa hivyo naomba hizo vitu, kama serikali inasikia, hizo vitu viregeshwe. Hizo cooperatives ziregeshwe. Kulikuwa na Kilifi Cashewnut, kulikuwa na Ramisi Sugar, kulikuwa na Kenya Meat Commission, ambazo zilikuwa zikifanya kazi. Watu walikuwa wanapata kazi.
Ilikuwa za ajira pia.
Refinery. 1981 Ngomeni Malindi tulichimba kisima mafuta pale, kuna crude oil pale Malindi Ngomeni, imefungwa, ambao 1982 tulitoboa mafuta pale crude oil, ambao kuna mkondo unakwenda Saudia, ambao ulikuwa tunataka pia ingekuwa inafanya kazi. Leo vijana wangekuwa wamepata ajira kule. Vitu vingi vimeharibika.
So a lot of
ambao ilikuwa ni uchumi wa Kenya, ambao ilikuwa ndio uchumi wa Kenya, ambao ilikuwa ndio source, ambao ilikuwa ingeinua leo Kenya, ingekuwa iko juu.
Serikali iregesha hilo.
Na nini imeharibu, in your opinion, nini imeharibu?
Utawala mbaya, ni ulafi wa kutaka kila mtu awe yeye ni tajiri, amiliki pesa mingi, yeye awe tajiri peke yake.
Bad leadership and greed.
Wakenya wakufe, Wakenya kuwe maskini.
Asante sana Bajida.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for that. Thank you. It's always important to let out, to vent, and at least let steam off in the first instance. But he talks of the cooperatives and institutions that have been shut down over the years, and job losses and lack of opportunities at the coast. He talks about, I think he mentioned finding crude oil or tapping into crude oil in Kilifi, was it, in 1982, and this was shut down for one reason or another, and it could have been giving or helping out a lot of livelihoods in that region. And he points out that that's due to bad leadership and greed, and people wanting this idea of material and wealth acquisition, which comes back to our value system, the importance we place on wealth and materialism and having this much money.
And how that affects our nation.
It's what's driving our leaders as well, because we have to remember our leaders do come, from the same pool as we do in terms of they're members of society as we are. So if your value system is extrinsic and based on wealth and material acquisition, even when you're in leadership, that is what you will look to achieve. So maybe we need to redirect that and start placing emphasis on what we used to, the idea of respect, community, family, pride, honor, that sort of thing. So that even when you go into the leadership, what you're trying to come out with is a sense of pride and respect and honor, as opposed to trying to get as many Prados as possible or build as many houses or get as much money as you can. It's going to have to be a serious shift, and I doubt it will happen in our time. It's going to have to be generational, whereby we move from these extrinsic values that we've now adopted and embraced of acquisition to intrinsic values that we used to have. I don't know how we're going to go about that. I don't know who's going to kickstart that. It's a world of capitalism. But you can see even in the West, people are letting go of material acquisition. They're now looking for happiness and, striving for sort of peace of mind and this idea of mindfulness. You find the really rich even, somebody like Mark Zuckerberg, you're not going to see him in a designer suit. It doesn't matter what he drives and so on. So even the showing off of it is cringeworthy. But something to think about.
Speaking
because it always boils down to that.
What makes you proud as a Kenyan? What is it that makes,
What makes me proud?
Yes.
As a Kenyan?
Yes.
A
When you
lot
say-
of things.
when
How
you
much
say,
time do you have?
I'm proudly Kenyan. What is it?
A lot
You
of
can just narrow
things.
them
There's
down to
just
maybe just
when I
say
land
what
at
stands out completely.
JKIA and they say welcome to Nairobi, there's a feel good factor. There's an energy that runs through me. I'm excited to be in Nairobi. So
Why?
Kenya
Because
is
you're home?
vibrant. I love the people. I enjoy the interactions. Yes, I'm home. I love the food. I love the nuances. I like seeing the guy on the border on the road doing what he's not supposed to be doing. The little way we do things, the things we turn a blind eye to in terms of even in the law, but because it makes sense as a society. So those are some of the things. Family, friends live here. I love our media. I love everything about Kenya, to be honest.
Do you think that what
I don't
drives
know
you
what
is
it
because you're thinking, this is who I belong, so I'm therefore proud of who I am? There's
It's
also that
it's me.
intrinsic
It's also
bit of
me.
it
I'm not going
also.
to dislike myself. I
Yeah.
am Kenyan, essentially. So, what am I proud of? I'm proud of terms of course, on a global platform, there's our athletes, there's some of the resources we have, and we can show off and flex our muscles about the coast. We have some of the most beautiful beaches in the world. We've got great sort of parks, animals. In terms of what we can show and give to the world.
Yeah.
In terms of the people, there's a spirit about us Kenyans, and I wish we could encapsulate it and put it in a bottle and sell it. But
Never give
there,
up.
there
You know,
is
the
some
same-
optimism,
same
some
spirit,
resilience,
yes,
and
resilience.
other than the politics, to be honest, I think we would be very easily united, and this idea of nationhood and building it would come through, but for our politics and the divisions that come with that, and of course the greed of the leaders. Those are the sort of 2 or 3 things I'd want to get rid of. But
I think if you ask anybody that question, what makes you proud to be Kenyan, they'd enumerate almost all those things that you've said. They'd say exactly the same things. Even Mike, who wants to go abroad, he'd actually tell you, I'm proud to be Kenyan because of
let
A,
him
B,
go
C,
abroad.
D,
He's going to
you know?
miss Kenya. I'll tell him that much.
He'll tell you,
he's
I'm
going to
proud
miss
of I'm proud
Kenya.
of Kenya for A, B, C, D. When we galvanize, when we come together as Kenyans, we actually come together from those basic foundations. So that's our identity, probably. If we just go back and find a way of rallying ourselves towards that, what makes us feel Kenyan? If we can't ask ourselves that question,
I think
what
the way to
makes
really
you proud?
appreciate it sometimes is go away for a while and see what it is you actually miss. And it's hard to articulate. It's, you come back into the sunshine and there's just a vibe, almost a music that everybody's dancing to. You see the guy on the side selling his eggs. You see him peeling it with a spoon and putting tomatoes in there. And then you see the matatus. And there's just an energy that everybody's part of, but nobody talks about.
One of the things that Kenyans do extremely well is we're innovative, as some people would call it. And this innovation actually began and came about around the time, the peak of the Moi era. And it began in the time of mass laying off of people or giving them an opportunity to retire. They're called the golden handshake. I see this as people who are hitherto very trained, very capable, entering what we call the informal sector. So the informal sector had an infusion of knowledge that it previously didn't have. The informal sector was identified as a place that people who were not very well trained, didn't have much to do, didn't have much promise, went to. It changed. So a kiosk stopped being a place where they sold salt and sugar. It became now a shop, a mini shop. In fact, you could almost get anything in a kiosk. That's innovation. You stopped having places where you would have a salon. No, it became a barber shop as well. At the same time, it sold clothes on the side. At the same time, there was a small group innovation. But even more importantly, if you look at the light industries that are part of the Juakali sector, it wasn't just your ordinary Jiko. No, you came up with Jikos, eco Jikos.
Yeah, they keep innovating. Actually, they keep improving.
All manner of things came up as a result of this. Now, this thing that Njeri refers to as an identity, it is an identity. Diversity is an identity. What she's referring to are the challenges that come about with what we call national identity. Yes, one of them is ethnicity. It's a challenge because in many countries, ethnicity takes the fore. Again, there's the concept of globalization. It also interferes with national identity because with globalization, people ingest and bring in all sorts of ideas that come in. And then there's the issue of immigration. It also, you see, the identity of Americans is one of the outstanding is how they welcome that diversity brought about by immigration.
Yeah.
That is it. The multi-ethnicity, that is an identity.
Their diversity is identity.
Yes, exactly. And they call themselves, they unify it in the term, they're all Americans. But it wouldn't be very unique if they had a homogeneous whatever identity like some countries where there's just one community. But the uniqueness is that everybody is part of being an American. Everyone. That's the unique, and it's the diversity. And we have it here. So it is an identity.
What is our national identity? So we're asking you this question because we have been discussing it. We've been going through ideas one after the other. We'd like you now to tell us, what do you think is our national identity? What makes us a Kenyans? What is our nationhood? What is it that we can say is our heritage? What is it that we stand for? 0719 012 600. Good morning. It's 9:15.
It's not every day that you meet a centenarian. Take, for example, the Standard Group. We have been here for over 100 years, and our secret to longevity has been but one: the magic of service. The magic of serving you, our customers, has given us so much life, and we could not have been here without you. We thank you, and we will continually endear to serve you to our level best. The Standard Group Customer Service Week. You mean the world to us.
96.0 Spice FM, Nakuru.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Spice FM, 17 minutes after 9 o'clock. Kenya's biggest conversation on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on Twitter, Spice FM KE. We're discussing our nationhood, our identity, and we are asking you to call in and contribute to that. And Ndu, you were saying our identity is defined by our...
Well, I'm thinking our identity can be defined by what we hold dear, or can be made up of what we hold dear, whether that is our resilience, our ability to be able to get through any kind of situation, pride in what it is that we're able to do. I mean, I look at having been able to go to different parts of this country, I look at the different cultures that come out from different areas, and I say, if these could be picked upon and brought together as one, there is so much that can contribute to the makeup of an identity for this country that can be used. And I keep going back of a very important tool that can be used for the development of a country, because what you see is when you're able to bring the people together thinking of one mind, then now you're able to make sure that you have things like sustainable development taking place. And I look around this country and I say that there's so many things that are evident of the fact that people are able to move forward. People are able to hold on to one thing and pursue excellence, for example.
Yeah.
And I say those are some things that we can use to be, that can be the makeup of a national identity.
Norman calling in from Kisumu. Good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Yes.
Yeah, what I can say about our identity as Kenyans is that Kenyans, we mainly identify with our colonial boundaries. Yeah, I agree. I agree that we are diverse. We are people of diverse tribes. Like we have Somalis, northern Kenya. We have so many tribes in Kenya. But what gives us our identity, the kind of mentality that we have as Kenyans, that we are Kenyans by virtue of being a colonial territory called Kenya. But mostly our parents or the former, our predecessors, how they made it appear that we are supposed to be identified by our tribes. For example, you know, when you look at these tribes that are politically very active, the majority tribes, they discriminate. They used to discriminate based on their political alignment. Because when you look at the smaller tribes, they are not that conspicuous, and those feelings, those strong feelings about tribes and political disagreements, they're not there. But I'm happy because when I look at campuses, the youth in the learning institutions, you see they have defied their parents. These people interact very freely, and I see what will make us identify ourselves is maybe our problems as Kenyans, our culture. Like there's this common phrase that people use on social media, "Ati hii ni Kenya." When someone maybe leaves somebody does something that is corrupt or something like that. So unasikia mtu akisema ati hii ni Kenya. Hii ni Kenya. So I mostly we identify with the negative things as Kenyans. I don't know why. But the youth are promising to divide the tribal identity, and I'm happy for that.
Asante sana.
Thank you, Norman.
0719-012-600. What do you think of our identity?
Well, while we're discussing identity and what I called earlier idiosyncrasies and the way we do things, the little habits we have and so on, the one thing I'd like us to establish today, and I hope we have the platform to do so, is what should be the standardized greeting in Kenya, because that seems to evolve over time and across class.
Why are we
so sometimes,
standardizing
because it's anxiety inducing when you see somebody and you really don't know what the next step is. Is it going to be 3 kisses, 2 kisses, a hug, handshake? Are you going to wave from afar? We need something standard that is agreed upon between everybody, because for the longest Kenyans we did the handshake and that was fine. And then somehow we had some sort of influence from the West and we thought it quite rah-rah to sort of the kiss or the hug.
How many kisses do you do actually? Is it 2 or 3?
2 is British, I think.
And
3 I've seen.
French?
3 is French.
3
is French.
Okay.
And
2
4?
Let's just do the Masai one. Masai, you tap on the person's head. If you're actually a senior to somebody,
But it creates this awkwardness where for a few seconds you don't quite know. And for me, I get a lot of anxiety.
So how do you start? Do you start from the left?
No,
right?
that's the other thing, and then you end up, your lips meeting. What is the standard Kenyan greeting, and what should it be?
Handshake.
Cross-generational, cross-class, cross everything. What should be the standard one?
Well, the handshake,
But that's
we've
not
even
too
seen it come
clean.
on a political level even earlier this year. So clearly,
The
handshake is something that should
But
be.
then again, people argue that the handshake is unhygienic and you exchange a lot of germs. I sometimes don't want to shake hands with certain people, or with men primarily, because I don't know if you've washed your hands. So it's a bit awkward. I'd rather just, a little wave. No, I'm being completely honest. I would rather not shake your hands. I find it, and it's also intrusive somewhat to come into my space with your hand and I have to touch you. I don't want that feeling.
So you'd rather come to your face?
Actually, it's quite unique, the handshake to Kenya, in terms of when you greet people. I remember that standing out. Somebody would walk into an office and shake everybody's hand. You'll find that's actually a Kenyan thing. You don't do that. I didn't do that in an office.
So Nigerians
elsewhere.
don't shake hands?
It's actually a very
Kenyan
Kenyan thing.
How
Yes.
do Nigerians shake hands? How do Nigerians... Greet
Yes,
each
how do they
other.
shake
Well,
hands?
it's actually interesting that you ask that, because the greeting is actually a cultural thing. And depending on where you are in the country, you'll find that Yorubas, when they are greeting each other, they bend.
You can even kneel
bend
down
or-
depending on if it's to
and they
a
kneel
man.
down. If it's your elder, man or
katse.
woman, actually you will kneel down. Sometimes you will curtsy or you will kneel down. You'll find that men greeting elder men in the Yoruba culture will actually prostrate fully as a sign of respect to greet.
What, lie down?
Yes,
Like
yes.
really on any terrain?
What
Mud?
prostrate means the one thing, Jerry. you can't
was just-
squat and prostrate at the same time.
I was
It
trying to
actually
imagine
really-
it on a rainy day.
It
in the
actually,
mud.
and then you'll
and
find
in
that
the
the
mud.
Hausas in the north of Nigeria will yes bend down and put one hand on their knee, for example, as a sign of respect, just to say hello or greeting, that kind of thing. And it's also saying it really is a cultural thing. You don't, but the handshake is actually considered something.
It's quite unique to Kenya. The
Yeah.
way we're finding what she's saying a little preposterous, kneeling down or lying down for somebody. It's the same with
Extending
handshakes.
hand
In the
is-
UK, you only shake hands, on a business deal, or if you're being introduced
At
to
the
somebody. But to
conclusion of-
greet somebody, you don't touch anybody. You just say all right from quite far, and they say yeah all right,
All right.
and you keep it moving.
And if you want to look around the world, you'll find that Arabs a lot of times if they do, there's no shaking hands between man and woman, for example, but you'll find that they will tap their hand on their chest.
Who, the Arabs, they love kissing each other. Though,
I mean,
men
they
and
do
men.
kiss,
do.
but you'll find that if
On
they
the
do
lips
shake hands
too. The men,
Yes, I know.
the Arab
But
greeting.
if they do shake hands, and then they will then touch their
Touch.
chest.
Okay.
And there are different things that people do, but for me, the handshake here in Kenya was very.
It is. It's been normalized here in Kenya, but it's actually something
We shake
quite
hands.
unique and
Yeah, you do
different.
shake hands. That's what I'm
so-
saying. You do shake hands. It's akin to the.
But now we've gone into this. We sometimes hug each other as well, or sometimes it's two kisses.
That's
or-
westernizing it.
So which one should we stick to?
Shake hands.
No, but that's unhygienic.
Who
We
says
we
who?
need to curate a way. In fact, this could be part of
Who says
curating
who?
our
Let's
national
shake
identity, where we have a way of
Fist
sort of
bumping
greeting each other. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's cool. Or do you remember back in the 80s where you kind of slide hands and then you bring your thumbs together and
I think
slide
that's
them
even
across
more
each other,
unhygienic.
and then you could sort of snap back.
There's actually more contact there. Yeah, fist bump or shake hands. I'd say let's just stick to shaking hands.
Well, this is all it really just points to culture and the way things are done here. If it's a Kenyan thing, okay, then I think so.
You
be it.
walk
But
into
then
a
you'll
room
find
full of people, you go around shaking their hands. and
that
if
for me
you
also
found
was
them in
quite
the
because
middle
it's
of
a
meeting,
laborious, could take a long time.
Found
kind
them in the middle of a
activity
meeting
to
and
get
you're
through.
just- you're
And
late
shaking 30
and you just go on
pairs of
shaking
hands.
everybody's hands.
Yes.
Form of respect as well. You're
Yes.
respecting the people that you found there. You can't just come in and say, "Nimewasalimia nyinyi wote." What is that?
No, you see, you derive respect because it's cultural. I mean, for some people, though, if it was Nigerians, they'll think, "Why didn't you kneel down?"
We're
Do you see
talking
what I mean?
about Kenyans
I
here.
know. So that is our
But
Kenyan.
that is
That
a
i-
construct, and
it's
it
a
could be
Ken-
deconstructed
it's a
and
con-
reconstructed.
Or we just accept it.
No, into
Well, where
what?
did we get? Did
Into
other
what?
did other tribes into maybe an all right? From a distance.
No.
You don't have to
Otherwise-
touch each
no.
other. Yeah, we have
Jerry,
otherwise.
if you are happy with all right, be happy with it. The rest of us are happy shaking hands.
No, not everybody is happy with shaking hands. I
Why?
know a lot of women who are averse to it because they don't know if the men have washed their hands after using the toilet.
My
I'm
si-
being
my
completely
sister-
honest.
my-
It's unhygienic.
my
It is
sister,
one of the best,
How
quickest ways
exactly-
to spread some of these
how exactly
communicable
do you
diseases.
listen? I said, if I'm happy with shaking hands, and you're saying no, I am happy with shaking hands.
And this
No,
is
but
it.
what I'm trying
Yes.
to
and
do
you're
is
unhappy
if
with
you're not
kissing.
happy,
no. But
yes.
if you give me your hand, I'm inclined to shake it. It's
no,
too awkward
give me your fist.
for
It's an accepted modern greeting.
Let's fist bump.
for the fist.
Yes,
Let's
it's an
fist bump.
accepted greeting. Fix whatever you call it. Who bump?
Fist
yes,
bump.
yes.
Right.
Fist bump.
yes.
No, because also you're discouraged from shaking hands when there's sort of outbreaks of certain, even just like bird flu
You
or,
do
or
know-
little
you-
things.
you
It's
do
one of the
know-
quickest ways to spread some of these
You do
communicable
know-
diseases.
You do know that you're heading into the realm of paranoia now.
No, I don't. No, I don't want to shake somebody's hand because you
Then
don't know
don't.
where they've been.
Then don't.
But I also don't want to be sort of rude or
No,
awkward. Or
no,
so
then-
what I'm saying is we could come up
What
with
else?
a handshake.
What else do we do, Jerry? What
The
else?
fist bump is all right, but I think a wave. So you start. You put your hand next to your face
We
and
do
you
that
wave.
in church. When you say,
Oh, that's
to a
different
whole
when the
multitude-
pastor
But usually it's from
When
a
I say
because
hi
they're
to
at
a
a
whole multitude,
distance.
to salimiana as a hewani.
Yeah.
It was because I acknowledge that I'm not going to be able to shake all your hands.
It depends. It depends. Some churches we have to shake hands. Yeah, you actually have
With
a
every- well,
ritual
yes,
where
there's-
you
in
shake
Catholic church-
in Catholic churches. Yeah,
that's-
you have to shake hands.
Show each other a sign of peace.
Mm. But no, I'm just saying there is a certain demographic that then, shaking hands isn't the thing. It's then hugging or, the 2 kiss or the 3 kisses that happens, which is that Kenyan? Did we kiss?
No.
On the cheek at least?
No.
Did we have that as a Kenyan concept?
No.
Actually, where did the handshake come from?
Yeah, I found it.
Because I look back at the Maasai community. The Maasai community don't shake hands. It's the issue of, the elder greets you, and now you greet the elder by, you give them your head, and then they just tap on your head. It's either an elder man to a child, to any younger person, head. Man to woman, head. Woman to younger person, head.
Interesting.
So, the history of the handshake dates back to the 5th century BC in Greece. It was a symbol of peace, showing that neither person was carrying a weapon. So, I guess, you're exposing your right hand. I suppose most people were right-handed even then. So, your right hand would be carrying the weapon, and that's what you're exposing. So, we've inherited that. I don't know. What was some of our pre-colonial African greetings? How did we greet each other? Did we greet each other?
At all, right?
Because the idea of a greeting could also be a concept and a construct.
The words actually do exist for greetings.
Habari is news. You're asking of news.
No.
Yeah.
Ohoro.
African greetings.
What does Nade translate into directly? What is the direct translation? How? It's always news you're looking for. It's not the individual.
That is not the natural African greeting.
It's the cultural way of saying what's up.
Yes, it is. But the way Africans greeted, it was a litany of things. It was, how are you? How have you woken up? How are your people? It wasn't one sentence.
It's a story.
And it was a story that took time, and then they responded in kind.
The Maasai say...
Well, they seem to have a hell of a lot of time on their hands. What if you're just passing each other? Do you stop and talk about...
Stop and, yes, find out how the other person is doing. It's 9:30. This is the Situation Room.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, looking at what is or not happening on the roads this morning. Yeah, I think we're at that place where there will be no traffic. If you're Mombasa Road and you need to nip into town, you'll get there in about 10 minutes. Same thing happens if you're way on Gong Road. The construction workers are not on the ground this morning. And so you'll be happy trying to get into the city centre if you need to. You can be in, out in 20 minutes max. Take it from me. Nothing else major happening on our roads apart from the few accidents that we saw this morning. Be safe. The roads are a bit slippery with all the rain that happened last night, and we don't want any terrible situations this afternoon. So that's what the situation is. Unless there's something major that happens, do drive safely as quickly as you're trying to get in and out. 0719 012 600 is the number to call, just in case.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice
36
FM,
minutes to
Nairobi.
10 o'clock, good morning. Happy Moi Day. This is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. I'm Eric Latif. In the Situation Room, we also have Ndu Oko, Siti Muga, and Jerry Thorne.
Mm-hmm. I'm here, all right, on a bank holiday.
Can you explain to me this concept of a bank holiday? What is a
What
bank
is
holiday?
bank holiday?
Just
What
a
is
holiday.
So
It's
banks-
like
In terms of
banks don't
transactions
open.
that will be done, banks don't banks don't open. Gee, my mouth doesn't work either.
Banks don't happen.
No,
they
but
don't
correct,
happen
you are
either.
right, they don't
Right?
happen.
So they don't operate, and so money is not, transactions are not happening. So basically, there's no trading that's being done. So it's a bank holiday that affects the rest of the country. That's why it's been
It's
called
like a
bank
public
holiday.
holiday. But you see, this is not really a public holiday. It's just a bank holiday because we're here, we're members of the public and we're working.
It's a
but
public
everybody,
service
the
working.
whole banking system is shut down. So you can call it a bank holiday. Yes, you have hotels are open, you have the leisure industry,
Public
hospitality,
Public service.
public service.
Are you telling me
okay?
that even the banks that function within malls are closed?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Everything is closed.
Except
so it's
for
a
your
bank.
run-of-the-mill ATM, but the bank
But
itself.
it's a bank holiday, no?
transactions are
What do
not
you,
taken.
or a public holiday, or a
Well, I
bank
ask this
holiday?
because I know banks that function on Sundays and Saturdays up to 7 every day.
Well, that's why
the
this
week.
is a bank holiday.
So on this particular day,
On this
they don't.
particular day, it's a bank holiday. It's the same as a public holiday, I guess. Maybe it's just my terminology. Bank holiday.
Yeah.
A very clever way, actually. We were talking earlier about public holidays, bank holidays, and what they mean for the economy. And we talked about the lull or the interruption that they might do during the week. What they do in the UK, sorry to say, is they make sure it always falls on a Monday. This way there's less interruption. And also it gives people a definite 3 days holiday. So no matter, even if it's New Year's or whatever, they'll make sure or they'll push it or give Monday as a bank holiday. Do you see
Don't-
what I mean? So if the
Don't interrupt with the week.
it doesn't interrupt the week. There's less
like
interruption. And
relaxed.
of course, also it's more enjoyable to have a consecutive 3 days for those that are taking the holiday. Yeah.
All
So
right,
we were
back to
talking
greetings.
about, and African or Kenyan idiosyncrasies. And one of them I've noticed is the greeting. It stands out for me. It's quite different. But it's the fact that there's so many variations to it, and I never quite know what to do. Sometimes you can pick up, okay, this demographic, these guys look slightly westernized. They're going to want to do the kiss thing. Then again, there's layers to that. Is it 2 kisses or 3 kisses? And it becomes extremely awkward. And for me, it actually gives me a lot of anxiety.
Just go with the flow.
No, this is
Do you not get anxiety from
no,
this?
this is
I
self-
get.
Jerry, this is self-induced anxiety.
It's not.
It is. I mean, look. Does anybody here worry whether you should kiss someone on the cheek or the forehead? No.
No, you guys
No.
come
when-
in and you say
we
what's
shake
up, and
hands.
it's fine.
Actually,
It's-
I've got to admit as well, it happens. So when you start,
How
especially
does it happen?
when you start with the first kiss, so you're wondering, so are we doing, so we started on the
Wait,
left,
Are we discussing
right?
greetings or
Are
kisses?
we going back to left?
This is the type. The kissing is
are
a
we
type of
done?
greeting.
Are we down with the 2? Are we going to the third one? It's
And there's so many awkward
It's
moments
awkward.
as a result. And it's just, I think we should all come together and come to a consensus as to what the standardized Kenyan greeting
or
should
just
be
hug without
amidst
kissing.
amongst a certain
Jerry,
demographic.
Of all the things that we should do in this country, you actually think we need to spend time to be discussing
I
how to
think we do,
unify, how
since
to
it's a
greet each other?
change we can make. If it's causing
No.
me anxiety,
It's causing you anxiety.
and a lot of people, it's a very awkward thing.
So find a way of reducing
This-
the anxiety.
I think we should all come to a general consensus as to what our
No.
standard greeting is amongst different demographics.
You are describing
We should
some
go
of the,
back to where
some
we've
of the
been.
benefits of diversity. You're talking about people who tap others on the head, others kneel, others do. This is diversity. Now, you want it to be one uniform. Yes. How?
Right, looking at Kenyan idiosyncrasies. The other one that I remember growing up that I used to do was when you drink like soda with food. Do you remember that? Anybody?
Yes, I do.
So it's not having a drink with your food, but it's actually putting the soda into your mouth when you have the food. So you have a samosa and you do you not remember this?
No. Please.
Okay.
No,
Let me
wait.
try and elaborate.
No, you don't.
I'm hoping my audience can identify with what I'm
But
saying.
I do that. I still do that. So I'm wondering why it is.
Well, like
you
having
think-
a drink
what
with
I'm
your
saying,
food.
it's a very Kenyan thing.
I mean, I
To,
put
to
food
take
in
a
my
bite of
mouth
your samosa and
then
while
wash
you
it,
have the samosa in your mouth, you
and then
take a
drench it-
swig of your
drench it.
Fanta so that you mix the soda
Yes.
and the samosa.
Yes.
That is a very Kenyan thing. I haven't seen it elsewhere.
How do you do it?
Just as I've
Elsewhere.
explained it.
You swallow and then.
You swallow, like
And
you
then
don't
you take
mix.
the
Yeah. Oh, right. You didn't know there's another way of doing it, Eric?
No, what if the
So
food
up to
chokes
today,
you?
if you're having like a
If I'm taking tea and ndazi, so I bite the ndazi and then I take it down.
Down with
while the mandazi is in your mouth,
I
Yes.
take it.
good
The
lord.
point is, I'm taking
Jerry,
it down.
Jerry, the mandazi can't be anywhere other than in your mouth.
No,
if
the
you're
idea
eating
is that
it.
you swallow it and then you can have a sip of your tea.
No.
This is what I said. It's a very Kenyan thing.
That
I
could
haven't
choke
seen it
you, Jerry.
elsewhere.
Please don't try it again.
No,
Please
no,
stop.
no.
If that's
No.
if that's what you do, by the you're putting yourself in danger. You're endangering your life. Please
Yes.
stop. It could choke you.
Anyway, that is yet another Kenyan idiosyncrasy. This idea of having to swig something and put, soda in your mouth or whatever it is you're drinking, whilst
maybe
the
it's even
food is in
other-
your mouth.
Yes.
No.
There's
So
a
if
straw,
you were
there's a soda
having
and there's a straw,
a
just-
Michelin star meal and you're having, I don't know, some salmon and something and some jus and what have you. So you would eat your salmon and then whilst your salmon is in the mouth, you take a sip of your Sprite.
A salmon is on a mandazi.
Oh, so,
Or
oh,
some
oh my
So
goodness.
for
It's a
different
snack. If you're snacking, if you're taking that or a root and a mango, those things, hey, but you've got to take it down.
You'll choke on it.
You've got to take it down.
Okay.
It's a
Interesting.
way- it's a
But
way
yet
of
another
doing
Kenyan
things.
idiosyncrasy. These are little sort of nuances I've picked up. When we talk about identity, I'm not saying this is our identity as Kenyans, but these are little things that
That
we
make
do.
us stand out.
Yeah, little habits and little tidbits and so on that we do.
In Nigeria, do they swallow like that?
Well, I haven't really paid attention to whether people are
Do they swallow in
What do
Nigeria?
you do?
I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to that on a whole.
So Jerry asked you, ask the question again, in a Nigerian way. Do they?
No, I was asking if they swallow in Nigeria.
Do they?
Oh, food? Yes.
Okay.
I don't think there's another way.
You talk about idiosyncrasies. We've discussed it on this program before. It's how we use our words in Kenya.
Mm.
For instance, the word yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to just
It's
mean
supposed to be an answer in the
an
affirmative.
affirmative, yes. But in Kenya, it's a greeting.
It is. Mm.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
And it's
Can
not
you say it in
someone's
Swahili? Ndio? Ndio.
No, in Swahili it doesn't quite work.
Right. It's the word. It's in English.
Swahili,
Yes.
it's Sindio.
Sindio, yes. And it's a greeting.
And it's a question as well, isn't it?
It-
Yes.
It's also
yes.
an affirmation.
So,
Sindio.
so the meaning of yes is actually expanded in this country.
Uh-huh.
And the other one that we use, when you want to ask someone in one word how their life is and how else their life is proceeding, one word.
Otherwise.
Yes.
That is, I hate that word because what it is, it's a prompt for you to talk because the other person is too lazy. Even on the telephone, you get somebody calling you and they say,
Hello?
"Oh, hi, how you doing?" Otherwise, and then you're supposed to come up with a spiel and the story and whatever and the conversation.
I'm finding
But
out
yes,
how you
a very
are.
Kenyanese thing to do. Otherwise,
I'm just finding out how you are. So I don't want to start by telling you about myself. I want you to, I'm giving you the opportunity, first of all, to tell me how you are. And then I'm going to also come and tell you how I am.
How about you say that?
No.
What's going on with you?
No, the two of you are too westernized. the Kenyan greeting or traditional greetings in many communities involve a brief conversation. It wasn't just hi, how are you doing? No. Hi, how are you doing is the closest you get to it. But it was really, look, how are things really? And then detail. And then
And
you
you go into the
respond.
detail.
So
The
then how did,
children,
that get,
how the
how did
children
that then
doing?
how did that then get compacted to otherwise?
That is now the construct, the idiosyncrasy she's talking about.
Yeah.
And if a Kenyan, so for instance, wants to tell you that they are surviving despite the vagaries of the economic situation, what would they tell you?
Well, that I know because people say at least
Yes, exactly.
all the time, and I don't understand.
they say what?
At least Nico,
What's that?
Nico at least.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
Hey, these are your people I'm telling you about.
Tell me, they say what?
Nico, at
At
least,
least.
Mama.
Yes.
How are you feeling today, Jerry?
At least, yes.
Nico, at least, because yesterday when I
I
spoke
have
to you,
never
Was
heard
not
of
as
that.
good as.
yesterday when I spoke to you, perhaps you were down with the malaria, for example.
So now that you're
Right.
better,
And so then
There's
today,
improvement.
I've asked you,
I've
Jerry, how are you
moved.
doing today? Hey, Ndu, Nico, at least.
Shut the front door. No, I've never.
I know that. They do. It is
Nico,
said.
at least. So
Nico,
somebody
yes,
says,
at
hey, how are
least.
you doing? You say at least.
As opposed to
at
saying,
least.
I'm doing better, thank you.
Oh,
and Nico,
right,
at
okay.
least. Right.
Another
what
one
about-
I've noticed. Sorry, you had one, Eric?
Yeah, a way of expressing modesty. You know, just being modest in something. You find somebody actually driving out of a showroom with a brand new car. You're like, hey, nice car, you're doing well. Tunajaribu. Tunajaribu.
Or if you ask someone how it is they are actually coping at the place of work, they'll I am a man.
I haven't had that.
No, CT, I haven't come across that.
You're a man who.
The rest
It
of
means
the
I have
people who are actually
employment.
working.
Oh, yes.
Among the living.
Among the living, I'm alive.
It's interesting because they're then kind of supposed to understand, you know, what is being said or how it's being said. And it points to the fact that there are very many things that we can actually come together, you know, about and
Yeah,
have
they
created.
define us.
So
They're
it's
our
not as if we
identity.
don't have a
I wouldn't
living
say
and
this
active
is
factors that we can pick
identity.
from.
Another
Not-
one I've
not part
realized.
of.
Another one I've noticed, which is more sort of an attitude as opposed to verbal utterances, and it's on Sundays. If you notice, everybody's very somber and very nice and pious, just for the Sunday. And of course, everybody's well dressed. They're going to church, but even the attitude changes. People are suddenly more gentle and a lot nicer to you. And you see it even on social media. It translates. You know, people are putting up nice quotes, and these could be some of the harshest people. So their personality takes a complete turn
Is that
on
not
a
good
Sunday.
thing?
Mm.
Is that
And then
not
when
good?
the
I'm not
clock
saying it's a bad
strikes-
thing.
when the
I
clock
didn't
strikes
suggest
midnight,
it's a bad
It's a
thing.
holiday.
But
Yes. They're taking a break from
Take a
themselves.
break from everything else. This is Sunday.
But
Time
yeah,
to
that
reflect.
happens on a Sunday. People are generally nicer because does that mean that people are not nice? If you can actually be nicer than you are you choosing not to be nice then?
You're choosing to
Are
be
you-
natural, and then on this one day, you're actually making effort to.
So why
you-
not
or
make
it
that
could be
effort
seen
to
as if you
always
were
be nice?
pretending.
Because it's going to be boring.
To be nice is
The
boring.
whole week.
Eric, oh god. Okay, so Eric is one of those who's nice.
For an entire 7 days, I'm just being
nice.
humble and nice and all, you know.
Nice
yeah.
on a Sunday.
Posting every day. Those are the same quotes. Come on. You've got to hit back at someone. Our
Right.
identity is actually, yes, so they are not our identity, but they contribute to who we are. And that's what we,
Yeah.
and when you talk about those things that make us proud, you see the way we are laughing about them is not because we are feeling angry about them. It's because you're feeling, well, this is who I am. This is me. This is who I am. I'm Kenyan, and this is what we do. And we're asking Ndu, what do they do in Nigeria? What do you do in Nigeria? And Nigeria, she tells us, so this is what happens in Nigeria. She's actually speaking with a lot of pride when she says, this is what we do in Nigeria.
But of course, yes.
See?
I mean,
Forms part of who you
couldn't-
are.
It couldn't be any other way.
If we actually maybe keep having these conversations regularly over and over and over again, they galvanize us. They bring us together because you're looking at the positives. We're looking at where we can make fun of ourselves. It's a good thing as opposed to constantly saying, "Oh, this country is going to the dogs." Oh,
Well, I think
what
the
shall we
power
do?
the power of conversation is often undermined in terms of, you know, if we can start having the conversations, then we can find that we can actually go quite far when we're talking about these things, because we often ask ourselves, okay, where is the hope? What do we do? How do we get out of this position of soullessness, which you've continued to bring up about? And, you know, we know, look, it's not as if we don't know where some of these solutions lie. We do, but we often keep them to ourselves. Okay, I'm not going to talk about it because I don't want to be seen as somebody who's going to, you know, making so much noise. But if we are going to move forward, if we're going to change the status quo, which we've all said we're quite uncomfortable with, we're going to have to start talking about it. You're going to have to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. I always like to use the pearl. A pearl is created out of a situation of friction. It's irritability. Some sand gets in there and she wants to churn it out. And what comes out of it is a pearl. So you want to have the uncomfortable discussions. You want to get to a place where you're going to have to get, maybe, yes, combust, get to ground zero, then for you to be able to build a beautiful thing out of it. And we're saying that, yes, perhaps we don't need to take the things that have been handed to us. And I would say no on a very large extent, that we don't necessarily need to take the things that have been handed to us and somebody says, go ahead and rule with this. But we can take those things and we can either throw them out the window or we can tweak them to suit us. Because a nation's sovereignty is something that should not be toyed with, and sovereignty is built up from the things that you can constantly be proud of, the things that you want to perpetuate, the ways in which you want to raise your profile on a global level. These are all the things that contribute to sovereignty. And in order to get there, you have to identify and be deliberate then about pushing some of these things that would then create a playing ground, or yes, a framework then for you to be able to build from or build within. And that's what nationhood is all about.
Who takes the leadership role? Who takes the lead in this?
I don't know if there's anyone necessarily who takes a role or takes a
needs to
lead, but
have
I
a
think
lead.
all of us need to start having the conversations, even from places like this, where we say, look, this is what we see. These are the changes that need to be made. This is how I can contribute as an individual. I mean, some of the famous songs that we've heard singing, we've heard musicians sing who use music through as a social way of spreading messages. They weren't kidding, or I think they were quite serious when they talk about, it really does start with you. We talk about politicians and government all the time who are still made up of individuals like you and I. They're not some kind of human being that has been created in a lab somewhere. They're human beings with the same thought processes as a thing, emotions, feelings, extraterrestrial beings. It's us here. And if the conversation starts with us here in the Situation Room, where we're having these conversations and getting people to act, not even think differently, to even start to think about the idea and then to talk about it where they are
And to feel.
and those conversations then become things that you express outwardly, and now you begin to feel the heartbeat of the reverberation through, and people actually the power of conversation is undermined in terms of what then it can do for positive results later.
So you have to take up like this session, like every, say, Friday. We'll be doing
Motivational mama.
Identity crisis.
Identity Fridays. So we have a constant conversation until we get to a point where we are feeling that
We need to talk
reverberation.
about
I think
it.
a conversation is just one of the things that
It's
we
one
need
of the
to
things that
bring
you
in.
can do.
But of course, you have to remove the bottlenecks. And some of the bottlenecks are things like, when people watch the political elite and their impunity, it creates a serious divide. Because remember, unifying people under one umbrella, one ideology, is at the basis of what statehood or nation building is. So if we're going to be deliberate about nation building, about bringing about an identity and, all coalescing around some positive core values and beliefs, then the first thing we need to do is actually weed out any bottlenecks, one of which is impunity and the corruption we see, because that immediately creates a rift. I am on this side, you are on that side. And also it then stops people from, the idea of respecting rules, laws, norms, values, and so on. As well as, I keep coming back to this, our value system. If we're going to see our leaders aspire to wealth acquisition, that is the children we're going to bring up. That's who we're going to be. Our leaders do actually influence our opinions and value system. And if they are all about material acquisition, as opposed to honor and pride and some of these intrinsic values I speak of, then that is the direction the country is going to go into. So before we even start, we can have these conversations, but before we start being deliberate about nation building, if you genuinely want patriotic people, a nation that is happy, moving forward, and patriotic, you need to remove some of the weeds. And the biggest weed here, the ivy, the poison ivy here, is corruption and in turn impunity.
Do you think the ongoing fight against corruption is, by 2022, will have actually set us in the right path?
There's no silver bullet for corruption. It's got so many facets to it because, of course, you're dealing with human beings and there's going to be loopholes and they can rely on the law and so on. We're definitely on the right trajectory. We have to remember, you always have to take into account the environment within which somebody is trying to achieve something. So I'm not going to excuse President Uhuru, but what I am going to say is remember that he has to do everything within a legal framework. It's not like the previous dispensation whereby there was no separation of powers and he had powers to fire and hire as he pleased. Now there's the separation of powers, there's the rule of law, and there's a right to a fair trial, things like that that are enshrined in our constitution. So you'll find people like Kidero, for instance, they will use technicalities and loopholes within the law because they're relying very heavily on this provision that, right to a fair trial. So you can't bring people to book. That's one of the problems we've had. And Kenyans are baying for blood with the corruption scandals that have been going on, in terms of they want to see heads roll and they want to see senior people being taken down. Now, these senior people can afford good lawyers. The lawyers can find the loopholes within the law. And of course, what else can you do but follow the law? So, for instance, we saw with Kidero, the courts were not able to use some evidence, or it was rendered inadmissible because it wasn't obtained in
Procedurally
the yes,
obtained.
it wasn't obtained in the correct way. So when you have such loopholes and technicalities that people take advantage of, it becomes a very difficult device to fight. So you can have all the goodwill, all the intention. I'm talking about myself as if I was President Kenyatta, Uhuru Kenyatta, that is. I can have all the goodwill, all the intention. I can invest money and empower the institutions charged with fighting corruption, so the EACC, the DCI, the DPP, and so on. But there's other mechanisms, there's other structures at play, because we're a democracy. We're a developing country. We believe in the rule of law. There's justice. So you have the separation of powers, meaning the judiciary is independent. You can't go in there and tell them, take this guy to jail. So we have to keep those things in mind. But we've made serious strides. We have never had such senior people being arrested for corruption. When was the last time you heard in Kenya that a minister had been arrested? When you look at C.S. Rotich and the likes.
Spent a night in police cells.
So those are serious strides for a nation like us. You can see that we're fighting back to impunity. We're saying nobody is above the law. And then more so also the money that has been taken back from corruption in terms of revenues recovered. There's quite a lot of money. It's just sometimes a lot of these things aren't publicized. The media is so out there to catch the corrupt, but when the EACC actually achieves anything, it's not put in the paper. So sometimes we feel like the fight itself is not as good as it should be. But there's actually a lot that's going on. And what I don't see, or what I fail to see the government doing with the fight against corruption, is again the social pillar. What are you doing with regards to the people and the mindsets? How are we going to start hating this vice where we look down upon it? Because at the moment we still glorify those who've earned money in incorrupt ways. We still look up to them, we respect them, we still elect them. So what is the government actually doing socially, from the grassroots level right down to mainstream media, ourselves? What are they doing to demonize this cancer called corruption?
Also, let's acknowledge some of the things that even the judiciary does. Like there's a story in today's papers that Justice Mumbi Ngoge rejected a plea to tour former PS Lilian Omolo's farm because she wanted the court to go there and see that, what I'm saying, the proceeds of what I have in my bank accounts actually came from this farm. And Justice Mumbi Ngoge said, no. We have evidence that has been produced in court here by the police officer who investigated this, and they said, and they've given us even photographic footage that shows that this farm could not be have done what you're talking about. So no, you're not going to waste the court's time by taking us all the way to Rarieda to go and look at a farm. See, some of these things also, when judges say don't waste our time.
Although I think she should have gone to see the farm. Sorry.
Why?
Because it's her evidence, and I think it shouldn't be disregarded. She does have a right to a fair trial. I believe in that, and that must be upheld. And if she has any evidence sort of that could clear her name, why would the judge refuse to go and see it? Or maybe she can film it. I don't know why.
If a judge feels that you're trying to abuse the court process by delaying this by taking us round, then the judge also says, look, no.
You do have people within this country whose duty it is to investigate these things. So unless you are doubting the results of the investigation, but if they say there is evidence, it is the duty of that person who's accused to provide evidence to the contrary that indeed this, but you don't state. There is no evidence that this lady has provided to prove her point, since we're discussing it.
But the onus is on the prosecution, isn't it? But that's a debate for another day. The onus is on the prosecution to prove that she is guilty.
But this is what they have done.
That's what the prosecution is actually doing. So as we wind up this Moi Day, let's now give our closing remarks on this. Let's reflect, because we were asked by Matiang'i to reflect on how we actually
and
also
be patriotic.
Be patriotic.
Right.
So your patriotic words today.
One of the things that you learn about human beings is the consistencies that they will make mistakes. We are sometimes not kind to our leaders, probably because of what we think and we expect and what we perceive them to be, and so we base our expectations on this. The question that Robert Kennedy asked is the question you should ask. It's not what
your country can
yes, what you
can do for your country.
Yes.
Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yes.
Okay, parting shot.
I've just parted with that shot.
What's yours, Ndu?
Well, I think that once you should want to be part of building of a nation, from an individual point of view to even those who sit in leadership. You want to be part. You should want to be part of that, and I think we can be deliberate in our efforts to do that. In terms of finding out, not just sitting and saying that information should come to us, but also demanding for demanding for change. We often ask, how are we going to change things? It's a mindset that needs to change before we see the manifestation of the same. So I think in everything we need to be deliberate. We need to speak up. We need to have the conversations, and if we're going to build this nation, have an identity which then goes towards sustainable development, which always is something that I'm very passionate about. I think then we need to be deliberate even in the way we think, speak, and act.
For me, I'm going to end on a light note and just plead to Kenyans that we come up with a general consensus on how we should greet each other, especially if it's to do with touching. So if it's to do with shaking hands or kissing, let's all agree on one thing so that we're not we're not confused all the time when you meet somebody, and we don't have this anxiety building up as you see somebody coming up to you. That is my plea to Kenyans today.
What everybody else has said, I add to that.
That and a bit more.
That and a bit more. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. 6 to 10 a.m. every weekday, the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. In the Situation Room, we always have Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and C.T. Muga. Between now and 3 p.m., it's Spice Soul, Sugar and Spice and everything nice. 3 to 7 p.m. you've got the Spice Drive with Monique, and then of course the adults in the room, Eric Kisiangani and Barbara, and they'll be here to talk about all the other things. Adults in the room. Well, it's Moi Day, so make sure that you enjoy your day, do all the right things. I'm looking at the kind of music that's coming up in the next hour. You've got Madonna, Papa Don't Preach. You've got You and Me Tonight by Aura, and also